Okay. Well, how's it going, internet people and YouTube and whoever the heck is actually willing to go out of their way to listen to me? Today, I wanted to talk about something still in the vein of entertainment and more about something that I feel really good about, something I feel really passionate about, as opposed to just being critical. I'd like for my posts to be insightful on some level, but I'd also like to be entertaining. But I don't want to talk about stuff that I don't have anything to say. However, I do have a video game series that I'd like to talk about. And the reason I'm talking about it now is because there are two games in this franchise, technically speaking. And the second game has 5 episodes, installments, and the fifth one came out a few weeks ago. And I finished playing through all of the playthroughs for it. And the games I'm going to talk about today are Life is Strange, made by Don't Nod Entertainment and published, or at least put out by Square Enix. The guys who, way back in the day had gotten famous with Final Fantasy and Ogre Battle and yada, yada, yada. So I have a lot to say about Life is Strange 1, and I also have a lot to say about Life is Strange 2. And I will get into further details. And from here on out, I just want to say that there will, in fact, be spoilers. Um, so if you're somebody that has not played either Life is Strange 1 or 2, or you're playing them but you kind of want to like get through everything, if you feel free to just go ahead and stop this video and come back to it when you're ready to watch it. So if you don't want to hear spoilers, go ahead and stop it. If you don't care, let's keep going. And today we're going to be drinking Boodle's Gin. This is actually not that pricey. It is imported. It is London Dry British gin. It's actually reasonably priced. It's kind of cheap for the scheme of things. It's not the best gin I've ever had, but I would recommend it if you're looking for what's something that's not that expensive that has a good flavor. So let's do gin time. When I posted my last video, a lot of my friends kept making fun of me, but they just kept repeating gin time. So of course they're making fun of it. I don't care. My life is a joke anyway. I'm talking about video games, and I'm in a bathrobe because it's actually been cold, weirdly cold for December in San Antonio. But I've definitely got this thing on. I'm going to be maximum comf and warm. Anyway, so unfortunately recording on my laptop today, so we're just going to put that together in these videos until I can get better equipment. It is what it is. Otherwise, I'm appreciative for my roommate's Wi-Fi, and I've also got a leftover glass of some really cheap wine here as well, just in case I run out of said boodles. So, let's get to it. I want to talk about Life is Strange 1, and then I will go into 2 here. Chronologically makes sense. For those of you who haven't played these games, they're basically slice of life, story driven games where it's more like about action and consequence. They're not puzzle platformers, they're not first person shooters, and they're much more about the story and the character development and the setting and things like that. I just need to say flat out that I love the first Life is Strange. It's about a young woman who has she wakes up from a nightmare. That's the very beginning of the game. She has this nightmare where this giant, disgusting twister / hurricane, whatever, really powerful storm is going to destroy her hometown. And then she wakes up and she's in class, and you find out she's a senior at Blackwell Academy, specifically for an arts program because she is a photographer and she wants to be like a great photographer. That is her art field. That is her medium. She wants to be one of the greats, but she's also a young girl who just turned 18. You can tell that she's trying to figure herself out. And the game is interesting because it's not like it's just teenage angst the game or something like that. Although one of my friends did say "Hello, teenager," which I thought was the game, which I thought was kind of funny because it's kind of true. The game is actually interesting because it's about, and I said story or action and consequence, and that's actually what drives the game. And it plays around with finding out that Max isn't just somebody who's wanting to be a talented photographer or something like that. It plays around with this mechanic that she discovers at the very beginning of this game, where she goes, "Hey, I had this weird dream." She sees this villainous student named, I say villainous, antagonist student named Nathan Prescott, who's sort of like a rich kid, but you can tell he's got affluenza. He has a gun. He brings a gun to school, but nobody knows about it. And she sees this young woman that she finds out soon afterward was actually her old best friend that she kind of just for whatever reason lost contact with, and she just stopped communicating with, and getting killed by Nathan Prescott. And her best friend, his name is Chloe Price, and then the game is then Max sees Chloe getting shot, and she instinctively is like, "No, stop!" And she literally rewinds time. That's when you find out that she is not just a young woman who's aspiring to be a great photographer. She has these weird time powers. She can fast forward time, she can rewind time, and it plays into the game's mechanics and some of the story decisions. And sometimes they're just as minor as rewinding a few seconds so that you can tell one of your classmates to be like, hey, step to the right really quick, and then a football comes out and hits the ground instead of hitting her. Or you can use them to make, well, really big decisions. Like she goes all the way back in time when she was like 12 or 11 or something, and she saves Chloe's father from going out and getting hit by a car and dying. And you find out that, of course, that is technically what leads Chloe into. It kind of spirals down into like a very punk lifestyle, and she's very rebellious, and she's like, smokes a lot of pot. It's implied that she has done a lot of other drugs and that she drinks a lot. Basically, she's the poster child for like punk teenage kid who dad's gone, and that's obviously causing her emotional trauma. And she's really, really smart, but she's kind of using that to sort of, counterintuitively make herself go into a pretty bad direction, i.e., in this case, getting shot by Nathan Prescott because she's like, hey, where's that money you owe me? And he's like, screw you, bang. Anyway. Oh, the doggies are inside. No, you're not going to see the doggies. It's just cold outside, and I don't want them to be in the video. Never mind. Anyway. Getting to the point, I love the first game because the first game ultimately deals with themes of the artistic struggle. And I think that when you're young, you have this imagination, you have these ideas, you have this, you have these things that you want to do and make. When you're young, you're taught like, oh, you're a teenager, and if you just grim yourself properly and work hard and keep going in the right direction, you'll be the next master. But I do think that a lot of people, and I had this problem, a lot of people, they find out that maybe they're not really sure what they want, or they have to question, like, can I actually be the master of what I want to do? And the first game kind of deals with that and deals with this in a way that sort of deals with like, oh no, you have to make consequences. And we're not just talking about like, oh, you have to get an A on your test. Max is dealing with things like, oh, there's, drug dealing and missing people in the town, and there's this mysterious storm that's going to destroy the town, and she's like, I kind of feel like I need to try and stop it, but also she randomly gets time powers and she has to figure out why and what she's doing with it. The game has a lot of different interpretive things with it, and the game is also, you can tell that the people who made the game, Ed Don't Nod, and who were writing it and putting all the stuff in, they were fans of things like Twin Peaks, Dune, David Lynch's movies, in addition to a variety of like high school, I want to say, like, it's not like High School the Musical at all, but like high school dramas, and of course, like, the main character is a photographer, so it definitely is appreciative towards the field of like art, fine art, and that kind of medium. And of course, what's brilliant is all the weird little things in the game that are written into it. I don't want to say Alan Moore-ish because, I mean, you could say it, but I also feel like there's certain things about that that are annoying, like it's really, really wordy, but that's not, I don't mean to insult Alan Moore. But there's certain things in there too, like at the very beginning when she wakes up in class, her teacher, Mark Jefferson, is like, I think he says something like Alfred Hitchcock once said that film are little pieces of time, and he's like, and like each still is basically a photograph, and you're projecting light through it, but those little pieces of time directly correlate and go back to Max's powers that she suddenly gets. So, and her vision of being a photographer is capturing that perfect moment, capturing that instance of artistic beauty or perfection or darkness or whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to use. And I really, really like that they tie that in. There are like archetypal high schoolers that you run into. Like there's Warren, this young beta male who's kind of nerdy and geeky, but it's obvious that he has a crush on Max. And then you in the game can, of course, choose to keep him as a friend or pursue something a little bit more with him if you want, but the game is not like a romance simulator. On that note, I should say that the only reason I picked up Life is Strange 1 and the Before the Storm prequel is because I was on DeviantArt and I'm following a lot of different artists on there. Unfortunately, I'm following too many and I haven't gotten to really go back and look at any of them in months. But I noticed that like people were making art of Max and Chloe, and I'm like, well, these must be like original characters, or no, they must be like pop culture figures. And it's like, oh, what is this Life is Strange game? So I bought it on a whim, gave it a shot, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the first game and the prequel Before the Storm so much to the point where it actually motivated me to try and be a writer, and I actually wrote a novel. I'm still in the process of trying to get it published. I have this gut fear that it's not going to get published and that it's just going to become like a trunk novel. And, but even then, that's just a thing that's off to the side. What I do want to say, I can play through the first Life is Strange and enjoy it. It's not just like the in-game scenery or the mood or the atmosphere. It's connecting with this young person. And I remember being that age and also thinking, like, I can change the world. I'm going to be a great something one day. I don't know what, but something. And it's not even that. It's the fact that yes, like you can kind of live a voyeuristic, like lesbian fan story while playing this game. And I don't want to sound like a creep or a pervert, but I think that there were a lot of young men and women that picked this up thinking like, maybe this is like a weird gothy or pop or hip like rom simulator or something like that. And it's really not. It's more about the relationship you have with your friend, the relationship you have with your community. And on that note, another reason that I do enjoy this game is because, again, unfortunately, I'm a philosophy major. The game is about choices leading up to things that go into different directions, and then you have to make decisions right then and there, and sometimes they can impact the game 3 or 4 episodes from that point, or they might be just things right then and there you have to deal with. But ultimately, the game is like, if I do this, there's certain times where you have to make a hard choice of do you do left or do you do right. And each time you make that choice, most of the time, you kind of go, oh crap, is this the best choice? And then you can rewind it and go, oh, I'll do this instead. And then you also go, oh crap, that's not really ideal either. And ultimately, the game culminates in being able to make this very epic, dramatic decision where you basically I gotta stop saying basically. The game culminates in the end where you're confronted with all these different realities, and you messed with time and saw the best and the worst of what could happen. And it goes down to this point where you find out that it turns out that your teacher was actually a serial killer, and he's really really creepy, and he's he's so wrapped in with photography that he's like a monster, and he victimizes people. But then you find out that as it goes along, you get to the end where right at the very beginning of the game, it brings you back to that nightmare of there's this massive F6 tornado / hurricane that's going to destroy Arcadia Bay. And then you have this moment where you go, oh crap, what if this is all my fault? Which is an interpretive thing. You could say that this is caused by Max, or you could say that there's a line that leads up to that where Chloe says something like, I think it's Chloe, she says something like, maybe this storm is Rachel Amber's vengeance or revenge or something like that. And I find that fascinating because then it makes me think oh, well, what if there's something going on supernaturally that we don't even quite know about? And then you find out that Rachel Amber was Chloe's friend that filled the gap after Max left, and they were implied that they were lovers, but Rachel was abducted and murdered by Mark Jefferson. So it's sort of implied she's getting revenge on the town. She's like, screw this town, screw everybody, I'm going to kill you. And I think what's fascinating to think about is it starts with the death of Chloe, and there's questions that you ask of what if Rachel Amber and Max kind of convened and she said, you can either have Chloe or you can have the town. Either I get Chloe or I get my revenge and screw over the town. But I don't want anything technically to happen to Chloe, but I wouldn't mind being with her, obviously, or something like that. So you get this pivotal final choice, and it's the damn philosophy trolley problem. It's that moral quandary problem. Do you save one person that you really care about, or do you save a bunch of people that you don't care about? In this case, do you save Chloe as Max? Do you save Chloe, your soulmate, whether you want to make her your lover or not? It's only another factor to that. But do you save your soulmate, your other half? Or do you save the entire town of Arcadia Bay and all its inhabitants, including the best people and the worst people and the average Janes and Joes in between? And I I remember the first time I played it, I was like, oh God, what do I do? And I want to say, I'm thinking back to the guys on YouTube, Outside Extra. They were talking about getting to that pivotal decision, and I think everybody should have that moral conundrum. You're a normal person if you go, oh crap, what do I do? Do I save somebody that I love, or do I save like 100 people that I don't even really have any sort of affection towards or even care about? It should be a morally problematic question, and I do need to just say off the bat that when you're put into a morally problematic situation, there's no right or wrong choice, and letting other people judge you and say, "Oh no, you should have done this instead of that. How dare you?" Don't let people do that to you. And I jokingly had people do that to me with this game, where I was like, "All right, I am thinking like if I had a choice between saving like the woman that I loved or the entire town or the entire city of San Antonio, even though that's a lot of people, I would never, my life wouldn't really be fulfilled on any level if my soulmate was gone. You know what I mean? So I have to save my soulmate, and I'm sorry, San Antonio, you got to go. I know there's a million people here, but I'm going to feel bad no matter what I do. And, it's one of those things where I know that people are going to go, oh, how cold blooded that you didn't save that many people. You always need to save more than less. I'm like, yeah, but what if it's like your family? What if it's your wife and kids? Is that okay? I would argue that no, it's not. But then again, the point is that it's shade of gray. But what I like about the first Life is Strange is that you can play through it the first time on your own. You can play through it the first time on your own and just have these natural, immediate reactions of what do I do? What do I do? Where's it going to go? And you can just see what happens. Then, what I find fun and what I find fascinating is that you can immediately take that knowledge and you get to see all the story choices, especially at the very end where it goes, and you get to sort of go, I'm going to replay this, but I'm going to do the opposite, or I'm going to tailor it to go in this direction. And I will say that if you know, this is the thing, it's like a reminder that hindsight is always 2020, especially when you don't even know what the future beholds, right? Now, gin time. Ooh, I'm gonna have a gin time for this. I did find myself fascinatingly. I played through it the first time. I made the decision of I feel more obligated to save Chloe than this town of random people. But then that made me go, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to replay it, and I'm going to save this town instead and sacrifice Chloe and see what that ending is like. But I noticed something was interesting. When you play through it the first time, you're kind of playing through it like in experimentation mode. It's like the scientific analysis mode. You're just going to see what happens. But then you realize that if you're playing through it with the idea that you're going to save the town, then you also in some ways feel more obligated to be nice to everybody, to be friends with everybody, to be like, oh crap, what if I do that? If I'm going to save this town, I'm going to save everybody. Knowing that you're going to say, all right, sorry, Chloe, you're done. But it changes the gameplay experience. And then you also get to see like, what if you do these choices and different things happen. And then you can even, if you want, I mean, this is the kind of game where like, regardless of, the amount of saves they give you, save profiles, you can play through it as many times as you need just to see what would happen and what your different options are. I do want to say there's like the optimal playthrough, there's like, without having to worry about rewinding time to do other certain things, there's like technically three playthroughs, maybe four, depending on like one or two dialogue options, where you can technically just say, I'm going to do this. Oh, since I haven't done this, I'm going to do this. Oh, I haven't done that. I'm going to try that. Oh, I haven't done that. I'm going to try that. But I noticed that there's certain things that if you do the opposite based, like the first time I played it, I didn't really want to be a dick to anybody. Like I'm one of those people. I try to be a nice guy. I don't like starting trouble. I don't like people causing problems for me. So I try to be cool. I try to get on everybody's good side. And then you play through the game, and you find out that in a way you kind of can't get on everybody's good side, but you can try. And then when you do when you play through it, the way I like to do it is I do the first thing, and then the second thing is I do the complete opposite, whatever that is. And if there's more options, then I'll save that for the third, fourth, fifth playthrough. Same thing when I get to Life is Strange 2. I'll talk about that. But Life is Strange 1, I said, okay, well, I did this playthrough. I'm going to do the second playthrough, but I'm going to do everything the opposite. And I found myself doing things like there's a pivotal decision near the end of episode 2 where without using your powers, you have to you have to save your friend Kate Marsh, who is slowly going depressed. She feels trapped. She feels like she's been used and nobody's listening to her. And you have to try and talk her down from jumping off the ledge. And the first playthrough, I managed to get her off the ledge. I guess I just paid attention and said the right things. But the second time, I'm like, I don't want to do this, but it's a game. No one's going to really get hurt. Let's see what happens. You can make it to where you easily screw up or accidentally screw up. That's the thing. It's tricky. And Kate Marsh jumps off and she kills herself. And then it's completely changes the mood of the game after that. And the third episode 3 lead in. And then there's even like a part in, I want to say 3, where if you save her, you get to go and visit her in the hospital. And she's a completely different person, and you feel good about yourself, and you feel better about your friendship. But if she dies, you don't get that. And then there's a point where Chloe says something to you, and you're just like, Chloe, one of my best friends just committed suicide, and we're about to do some other stuff. Please don't mess with me right now. And Chloe's like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be that much of a rebel. Sorry, I was just trying to be whatever. Anyway, the point is, it's like a moment of immaturity through all the darkness. But then there's other decisions like, what if you're mean or nice to Veronica Chase or Victoria Chase? What if you're mean or nice to her? Well, you may or may not get her in or out of the bunker with David Madsen, or with Mark Jefferson. David Madsen is Chloe's stepfather, who's clearly not the nice guy that William is. He's not as good with people. He's more of a hard ass. He's an ex-army guy, and he definitely has a stick up his ass. And he's the security guard at Blackwell Academy. But you get to see there's this relationship with that. But it's funny though, because I noticed and then there's decisions you can do there where you can go back and try and talk to him about things, or you can just leave him alone. And then there's a choice you get where you can either side, like the first playthrough, you're kind of thinking that maybe David Madsen knows something about the disappearance of Rachel Amber, Nathan Prescott, something's going on. But the way I was playing it the first time, I was kind of thinking like there's too much pitted against this guy. There's gonna be a twist here. This is a post M. Night Shyamalan world we live in, right? And I hate to say it like that. That sounds hipster. But I'm sitting there going like, wait, there's so much shit that's been piling against David up to this point. When he comes home and Chloe and his wife and you are kind of cornering him a little bit, and then of course you get the option: do you take David's side, or do you side with everybody else and go against David? And then the first time I said, you know what, I'm going to take David's side because I think that he's getting pitted as the bad guy, but I don't think he's actually the bad guy. I think he's too obvious. He's a red herring or whatever, right? A little bit of gin time. But then of course you find out that he has some information to give you. However, the second playthrough I said, well, I'm doing everything the opposite. Let's see what happens. I decided to surround him with everybody else. And then David Madsen basically was just like, I know when I'm being outflanked by a bunch of ladies. And then he says something to smart alecky to Joyce. And Joyce is like, maybe you should go and, get out of the house for a while and don't come back until we chat. And it's sort of implied that, you kind of caused a problem for their marriage kind of thing. And then, but at the same time, you don't see him for a while. And then when you see him leave the next day, he's just like, thanks, Max. You ruined my family. And he's trying not to sound emotional. And you're like, well, you kind of did this to yourself, but as a Max, you do feel sensitive towards the people around you. You do feel like you don't want to cause problems. Maxine Caulfield is a good person. She doesn't want to cause problems. She doesn't want to hurt anybody. Her entire goal is to figure out how to save the town and her friend. She is a moral person. Chloe is a bit more edgy and darker and problematic. But then David Madsen's walking out dejected, and I'm sitting there going like, damn it. Now I feel bad. I didn't mean to do this to their family. But then there's that redemption moment when he comes in to stop Mark Jefferson, and then you kind of feel more like, yeah, he's still going to come back and save you. What a cool guy. I misjudged him. Anyway. And then there's other little decisions too. I don't want to go into every story choice for A Life is Strange 1 because I want everybody to just, if you haven't played through it, if you don't care about spoilers, then that's great. But also play through it, just be in the moment. That's one of the great things about these games is you can be in the moment and just kind of go, what am I really feeling like doing? Regardless of the long-term consequences or even the short-term, what do I want to do with it? It's fun. It's sort of like, I hate to say choose your own adventure because I always think those get pitted as juvenile. And it's not like I go out of my way to play those or to read your own adventure books anymore. But this game is a choose your own adventure game in a way. which you could say a lot. You could say most games are, but in this case, it's the game mechanics and the story points and why you're playing it go into that. And you have the first Life is Strange, which is you get to those pivotal moments, you see how it is. Um, and I do think the game also does little things to sort of mess with you, sort of make you realize that this experience can easily be looked at as half full, half empty, or just there. Like for example, if you pick the utilitarian choice and you save the town and sacrifice Chloe, you get to see these moments where you're sad, you're empty, you go to a funeral. But technically, if you saved everybody, they come around with you, and you even see like Frank Bowers, who's like who's sort of like this gangstery guy. What does Max even say? He's a thug with a heart of gold, or Chloe says he's a thug with a heart of gold, or something like that. And then you find out that things can go awry with him and his dog, but if you save Chloe and you don't end up hurting him or anything like that, he's there too. And it's like everybody's mourning Chloe's loss. Again, it's sort of like that Twin Peaks Laura Palmery thing, where something happens to her, the entire town feels that for some reason, and there's a mystery as to why, and you find out everybody had a weird kind of connection with her. But I will say that if you take the utilitarian option, it does feel like Maxine's potential and her powers maybe don't go anywhere. And I say that because if you chose to save Chloe instead of the town, you sacrifice Arcadia Bay, you're like, oh crap, this is sad. The entire town's destroyed. Probably only a few people are going to survive, if at all. But yet, there's these little moments where it's like you and Chloe are happy. You're driving off on your own. It's like you're saying, screw everything. You're literally saying, screw the past, screw our roots. We're going to go off in our own direction and forge our own destiny. And in episode, I want to say episode 1 or 2, one of the only like collectible things you have in the game is taking photography moments. And like each episode, I want to say has like 6-ish photography moments. And sometimes they're obvious things, and sometimes you have to line everything up properly, or go find it, or just be observant. But when you play the first episode, I want to say it's episode 1. It might be 2. You go to the junkyard. I've been playing a lot of Life is Strange 2 recently, so I'm going to go back and play 1 just for funsies at some point. But 2, I've been spending a lot more time. I have so many more notes here, like about 2 than I do 1. Because 1 I just love and I don't have a lot of criticisms for. But to get back to my point, there's a point where it's like, well, one of the collectible photograph moments is seeing this deer at the far end of the junkyard, and if you get too close, the deer runs away, and also the deer is translucent and it's kind of like hazy. It's like 50% there, 50% not. And if you scare it off, and I did try this one time, if you scare the deer off, you can't use your powers to rewind it and have it come back. It's just gone. So it's like that's something that is outside of her temporal abilities. And but yet you're sitting there. So obviously that's something that you're supposed to pay attention to. And of course you find out that the deer, Samuel, the weird guy in the game, says, "Oh Max, your power animal is a doe. It's a deer." And of course there's like Max is wearing a pink shirt that says Jane, and it has a picture of a doe next to it, so it's like Jane Doe. So they're making commentary of like the average person seeing the reflection of her in there, but also her as a character. There's something unique. There's things unique to her. And then when you save Chloe, the town's messed up, but you don't see people, but you see those deer and they're fully formed. So the game is almost like giving you little things like that, saying like her powers are incredible. And there's maybe something cerebral to it. Maybe there's something meta about it. Maybe there's something natural and primal, druidic about it. But it's not unnatural. It relates to her power animals, like literally entities of nature. So it's not like her powers are devilish. Like they could have written, and maybe this was on the bulletin board, like a drawing board at one point, where they were like, what if her powers are slightly biblical? Because some people jump to that, and unfortunately it's lame. I get it, it works, but it's so unoriginal. I guarantee you somebody was like, what if we toyed with the idea that her powers may or may not be demonic versus angelic? And then they said, scratch that, because again, it's been done. There's no point in doing that. This game isn't about biblical references, although storms, at the end of every episode, there's sort of like an unnatural thing, sort of like the plagues in Exodus, sort of. But it's not, the game isn't supposed to be about biblical illusion. But there are tiny things in there too, like the all-seeing eye, the pyramid, and stuff like that. But the game is like, no, it's about being a force of nature or accepting what's going on. And the game is like, what are you going to do about it? So there's little elements like that where if you save Chloe, you feel justified. If you don't save Chloe, you also feel justified. And there's a part in the game where, and the game messes with you in episode 5 because you start using your time powers. I think it's implied you go into the timescape and you go into her psyche, or maybe you go into Rachel Amber's understanding of the world. Maybe she's messing with you because it's implied, especially if you play the first game, that there's something special about her, and there's something special about Chloe, and there's something special about you, Maxine Caulfield, when you played 1. You start to go into this weird dreamscape, psychoscape. I don't know what to call it. And I'm not a fan. That's the one thing about the game that it's my least favorite part, because I do feel like, okay, we're getting into weird cerebral mirror mask mode. We're going into David Lynchian nightmare dream sequence mode, and I think that's kind of what the intention is. But it's the one part of the game I just don't like playing. But it is weirdly climactic because it's taking everything and turning it upside down. And no, I'm not going to say it's subverting your expectations, because that's a totally separate thing. Fuck that. You know what? Not gin time, wine time. I got some wine here. Hold on. Yeah, I'm an alcoholic, so what? I'm just kidding. People, as a side note, please drink responsibly. And if you do feel like you have a problem, go and talk to somebody about it. It's okay. Anyway, back to the serious discussion I'm having about Life is Strange 1. There are moments like that where I'm not a fan of, where you're in the dream sequence, and some of the consequences earlier in the game lead into what they say when, like, you see the people walking around in there. Like, Warren says stuff, Frank says stuff, Mark Jefferson says stuff, Principal Wells says things, and it's like, oh well, I guess if you were a slightly better person, they won't say those terrible things. If you were a slightly better person, they may say those terrible things and try and guilt trip you. But I will say, the game at that point, the game is literally messing with you and trying to make you, as Max, question everything that you're feeling. And there's a part where you encounter yourself in the diner, but everybody in the town is all of the other characters except Chloe are frozen in time and jam-packed in there. And as you walk by them one by one, they all kind of say something like, Max, please don't let us die. And it's sort of alluding to, oh no, something bad's going to happen. And then you sit down in the diner with yourself, and you're like, who are you? And she's like, I'm you. Well, I'm one of the many yous you left behind, and I'm here to basically guilt trip you and talk crap to you. And then it sort of starts to make you realize, like, what exactly is all this for? And then you, of course, eventually get to that pivotal decision after you also go through a psychoscape part where you replay all of the things you've been doing, reconnecting with Chloe and the experiences you've been on. And the game is trying to say that, like, we all have an impact on each other. Life is weird because sometimes anything can happen, and yet we all go in these weird directions that we can immediately have a reaction to, or we can immediately say, like, I planned that, or I didn't plan that, or just, well, life is weird sometimes, and we don't always know what's going to happen. And of course, it does a good job, I think, of giving you a balancing act. And when you get to that final decision, there's times where I've replayed the first game several times. I've even taken months off breaks and then gone back to play it, and done like a little marathon where I did Before the Storm and then Life is Strange 2, or Before the Storm and then Life is Strange 1, and I still get to that end moment, and depending on how I'm feeling, I still struggle with, I originally wanted to start this playthrough with this mentality instead of that mentality, and I was gonna save the town, but now I still don't know if I should. Oh God! And it's normal. Life is Strange 1 is a well-made game in that regard, because even if you're like, one of those pedestrians that are just like, you need to save more people instead of less people, don't be selfish. You put them in that situation, and it makes you go, oh crap, what do I do? And I love that. I don't know why I love it. I just do. Maybe I'm weird like that. Maybe I like the idea that life can be a bit of a conundrum. Life can be, what do I do today differently than I did yesterday? Should I do it? Should I continue doing something consistently, whether I believe in it or not? I don't know. It makes you question shit. And I love Life is Strange 1. Great game. Characters are all fun and memorable. I think they were designed well. There's a good color palette. The environment. I will say that I've never gone to the Pacific Northwest in America before, or even crossed the border to Canada in that part. One of these days, I am going to have a road trip where where I'm going to dress up as Agent Cooper from Twin Peaks, and I'm going to drive around Oregon and Washington and just sort of look at some of those locations from that show. And then I'm going to have a Life is Strange. I'm going to incorporate Life is Strange and try and find some of these landmarks that they may or may not try to use. And then if I can get into Canada, we'll see what happens there, anyway. But there is a part of me that wants to go on this fun little road trip and just do it just to say it. And part of it I'm going to be thinking about is Twin Peaks and then Life is Strange and then see what it's been like. And see like the winds as they're going. The people that made this game have clearly been through these areas. Although I do have a note to say about that when I get to Life is Strange too. But for one, I do feel like they're looking over the fence near their neighbor's yard and they're kind of retelling that kind of story. And I enjoy that aspect. And there's a lot of things with Life is Strange 1. I'm just going to check my notes real quick. Outside of just having, the artistic struggle and the philosophical problem of, do I save the one person I know or the many people I don't kind of decision, which is difficult. I would argue it's still difficult. I would argue neither choice is right or wrong. I think that can be illusory depending on, and in this game, I would say it's illusory because you're pitted as going either direction is justifiable. I guess the one element, just other things I know I'm going to want to say to get off my chest too, is I do, and maybe this is part of the reason that I feel obligated to save Chloe instinctively. And as a side note, the outside extra people said, I know it's hard, but I did feel like I wanted to save Chloe instead of these other schmucks or whatever. They didn't say schmucks. They're all, British and Scottish people over there. But I also feel like I'm thinking back to the friendships that I have now and the friendships that I had when I was in high school. And one of my best friends, and this is the thing, I feel bad saying this, but in high school I had one of my best friends. I mean, outside of the people that I still associate with and hang out with and I love and I consider my like brothers and stuff like that, I had one friend in high school. His name was Austin. And I thought that me and him were really simpatico. We made similar jokes. We laughed at each other. We had a great time. We didn't really hang out outside of school a lot. But I'm thinking back to Max and Chloe here because when we graduated, I hung out with Austin one time. And he came over to my house. And it was more of like my mother going, hey, I want to cook dinner for him because he was such a fun little guy. And I was like, okay, So I got him over to have dinner, and my mom cooked spaghetti or something. But I felt bad because I was staring at my phone with his number, and there was just for some reason I felt like we were friends when we were on campus, but I just didn't want to be friends when we weren't on campus. And I felt bad saying that because I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And then I liked having fun with him, period. He was a cool dude. But like after high school, we reconvened one time. He came to the house, and then all we did was we sat down and it's like I didn't even really want to deal with him. And we watched like the 100 greatest moments of Saturday Night Live. It was like this documentary marathon thing on VH1 or something. And I'm sitting there going like, why am I not engaging with my friend? And I thought that was like something wrong with me, which, well, I know something's wrong with me anyway. But on that note, gin time. But there was a part of me that feel like when I see Max and Chloe, I think back to Austin and myself. Like this was a guy that I was really good friends with. I liked him. Well, loved hanging out with him. I made him laugh. He made me laugh. We were two weird, fun dudes. Like Jay and Silent Bob kind of people. Except for the fact that we both talked. We weren't Jay and Silent. You know what I mean? Point is, I think back to Max and Chloe and the relationship I had with Austin. And I'm like, and he wasn't really the only guy in that category. I had friends that I really liked spending time with. And then when you graduate and I'm just by myself, I'm sitting there going like, I like hanging out with my friends that I have on the weekend when we're role playing and gaming and stuff like that. But the other guys I don't really know. I had fun with just because they were there. And then I felt like, again, you feel kind of bad. And then there's points where Chloe is like, Max, why didn't you contact me? Especially when you came back into town from Seattle. And Max is like, you have options for her to say stuff. But it's obvious that she's not really sure how to deal with people that well. And so but she kind of knows what to do because she's nice. But she was just like, I don't have an excuse. I don't know, Chloe. I'm sorry. I wanted to connect with you, especially after your dad, William, dying. But then, there's things like that. And then the entire game, I would say the entire game has many different themes. And one of the strongest one is your friendships and relationship with people that you consider your peers and you respect on some level. Max and Chloe are complementary, and for different, like there's even that stupid little. They even jokingly, like, and I think at the beginning of 3, She's like, will you be my partner in crime? Only if you're my partner in time. And they both are like, oh God, why did we do that? And it's like, no, but that's perfect. That's what friends do. Friends do corny, kind of adorable shit. That's what that's what makes good friendships is like if you just had people watching you like on the other side of the like football field and you were just watching both of you interact, it's like, yeah, these are two people being themselves and it's kind of weird, but human beings are weird. So it's okay to do that. But we like, we put on a persona. We put on like a mask. We all wear masks, metaphorically speaking. If you haven't seen The Mask with Jim Carrey, you're missing out. It's a 90s classic. One of the best movies of the 90s to come out, at least comedy-wise. Jokes aside, like if two people that are really good friends are actually kind of weird and they open up about things and they talk about the best and the worst. Sometimes they fight, but then they make up, things like that. It is what it is. Wine time. Hmm. Anyway, but so, and I'll say this. I don't want to make this a running theme in my life, but when my brother was killed, I I kind of felt like I had my parents still, but something was different in our family dynamic. But my friends really helped to fill that gap of my only role model, my only sibling missing. And I really loved these guys growing up. They were super fun. I wanted to spend time with them. There were times where maybe I was spending a little too much time with them and hanging out. I wanted to hang out all the time. But then there were times where I was like, I don't want to hang out with anybody. And then I got really close and attached. And there was one point where I broke down talking to my counselor, and I was like, I don't want people leaving me. I don't want people. I don't want to. And really, it was just me saying I don't want any more people to die around me. But I was just like, if my friends leave, I felt really sad. Because and of course, like if people drift apart sometimes. Sometimes it's just a matter of life and circumstance. Other times you're just like, you know, uh, Dave was actually really a secret closeted douchebag this whole time, and I didn't see it because I just grew up with the guy. Stuff like that. Or like, oh, what's her name? I really had a crush on her for so long, but I don't know why. I think it's just because she was there, and now it's like this guy. There's plenty of fish in the sea, man. Well, I mean that's just a hypothetical example, but these are common things we all go through. So what I'm trying to say is Life is Strange makes things deep. It makes you it makes you reflect on things that are not just, did I get all the collectibles? How many points did I get? Can I boast that I beat this game in record time or some crap? No, Life is Strange is a game that makes you think and feel something, and I enjoy it. It's like you're reading a good book. It's like you're reading To Kill a Mockingbird, which I'm not a huge fan of To Kill a Mockingbird. Like, it's a classic. I don't want to reread it. I had to read it in school, and that's it. But it's like that. It makes you feel something. It makes you think something. It reflects on many different things when you're young, when you're an adult, and even when you're older. And it teaches you things, but also makes you go, maybe I could have done things different, and maybe that wouldn't have been bad or good. It just would have been different. I don't know. No regrets in life, right? It's hard to say that. Really hard to say that. I'm not even joking. So the first Life is Strange. There's this artistic struggle. There's this moral dilemma and philosophical conundrums. There's these moments that I think we can all attune to when we were teenagers, but also these moments when you see adults and you realize that nobody has it really perfect. Like Joyce is obviously missing her husband and filled the gap with this guy they're not necessarily the best, but he filled the gap. And David has issues from when he was in the war, and he even admits at one point, like, I tried to be a good soldier, but truth is I never really was a good soldier. I just tried to be. And then you have Mark Jefferson, who's like a artistic monster. And then you have like Principal Wells, who's just tries to be a responsible leader and taking care of the school. But then he's like an alcoholic. And there's even one point where you run into him where he's just outside of the boys' dorm trying to make sure the doors are locked or something. And he's just like, oh, God, I mean, all these dumb, damn rich, privileged kids, the shitty parents and stuff like that. And you're just sitting there going like, Principal Wells, I used to think you were kind of a bad guy, but then I realized you're just a bureaucrat who's just trying to survive, and you have to deal with garbage day in and day out. You know what I mean? So, and I'm thinking back to, like, again, not to keep name dropping the same people I watch all the time. Red Letter Media was doing a review of Starship Troopers, and which is a classic late '90s sci-fi action movie directed by oh God, the guy who did RoboCop and Total Recall. Oh, damn it, his name is escaping me. Well, it'll hit me later. But anyway, it has like Casper Van Dien as the breakthrough role. Uh, anyway, so the point, but then like they made a point when they were rewatching the movie. They said this society is a scarred society, but it appreciates scars. Like you notice that all the kids are great shape, nice, fun, sexy, whatever people, but then all of the adults are wounded. They're scarred. They're blind. They're missing limbs. There's something is off with them. They've seen the worst, and that kind of is a commentary on like a fascist society, a society that appreciates warfare and warrior things like that, like a warrior culture. And it's like it's not healthy, but they don't care. They just see that as this is what we got to do. That's how it's ingrained in their psychology. So I'm thinking back to that, in that when you play the first Life is Strange, you're kind of like William, like Chloe's dad is the closest to like an incredible person in the entire game. But of course, he's killed. He is robbed from us. So it's sort of like saying that nothing is perfect. And even the cool teachers, the cool adults that you do encounter, or even like the students who were kind of nice, you can tell that everybody's got issues, right? So the first Life is Strange is awesome like that. And I don't think I have anything more to say about that, about the first Life is Strange, other than I definitely recommend, if you haven't played it yet, go play it. If you have played it, go replay it, because it's one of those things where if you're at different points in your life, you'll get something different out of it. You could say that about a good book too, or anything, but I'm just saying that I'm trying to praise something as opposed to breaking it down. I also need to talk about the prequel, Life is Strange Before the Storm. And when I first acquired Life is Strange, it was a package deal that came with Before the Storm, and also that other prequel where you play as, them as little kids. Which I'm not going to say a whole lot about that one, just because I feel like it doesn't add a whole lot. It's just there for to get more something, like to get an extra. It's sort of like there is dessert. You've eaten the main course that you really wanted. The appetizers were fun, and it's just there with like a little cherry on top if you want more, and to feel like you're really getting a well-rounded experience. I think it's called Memories or something like that. It doesn't really matter. But Before the Storm. Now, I have a few things that I want to say about Before the Storm. Before the Storm is actually one of the few times where I feel like a prequel is done well. It's not perfect. There are a couple things that I do feel like didn't intertwine into Life is Strange 1. They were just barely alluded to. But the first Life is Strange, the Before the Storm is interesting because it's like instead of playing as Maxine Caulfield, this human being that sort of has to figure out how to deal with people, but also build up herself and figure out how she's managing her relationships. Chloe is different. Chloe is literally, I am a young teen, well, not a tween, not a young, I guess she's a mid-teen. She's not 18. I want to say she's like 16 or in the game or something like that. Maybe 17. Before the Storm is interesting. You play as Chloe instead of Max, and of course I'll say certain things like they not as criticisms, just whatever, but like Chloe doesn't have any special powers. However, they did give her this back talk mechanic so that you can do fun little dialogue moments where she's sort of berating people, but it can go in different directions, but you have to do it well. But I also noticed that the game, and it's only 3 episodes as opposed to 5. And I think that I will just say off the bat, Before the Storm, I do feel like there's a part of me that feels like the game should have been either cut down to 1 or 2 episodes, or should have been extended to 4 episodes, maybe 5, because I felt like that's what the Don't Nod and all the people wanted to do. But instead, they had it just be 3 episodes. You get through them, but I feel like there are moments, dramatic moments, epic moments, relationship moments, dialogue options, where it feels like there should be more going into that. And so it feels like there's either too much or not enough, and the game is like, it could have just been longer or something, I don't know. Anyway, Life is Strange Before the Storm is fun, I enjoy it. It starts like, you get sort of like a different experience as Chloe, you have a different perspective, even though she has a journal like Max. You can also tell that Max's issues are all like, what do I do? Whereas Chloe's issues are, she's got to like get over her trauma. She keeps having really memorable, horrifying nightmares involving her dead dad. And then, of course, she encounters Rachel Amber, and she's like, Rachel Amber's cool, but she's hanging out with me. And obviously, I have a thing for her. You don't have to play it. Again, it can be the thing with the first Life is Strange. where you don't have to play it as that they're lesbian lovers. They can just be close friends, soulmates kind of thing, which is of course even more tragic when you realize that Rachel Amber will eventually go missing or whatever. But Rachel is an interesting person. Rachel's an interesting individual because she's hyped up as sort of like this model person with a lot of highs and a lot of lows, but she only presents the best of herself. And as Chloe, you're kind of like, this is a young woman who's got her stuff together. She's got her shit together. So Life is Strange 1 is a character who's sort of like trying to figure the world out. Life is Strange 2, you're playing a kid who's actually pretty smart, who's got things figured out. She just refuses to see the good side in it, and or just turn it on its head or cause problems, because who gives a crap? She doesn't care anymore. She's missing her dad so bad. Her dad has been replaced by this other guy that's clearly not jibing or vibing, or not vibing with her very well. Her mom, she sees as like a role model, but also making poor decisions. So she's like, if my mom's making poor decisions, why don't I make poor decisions? Who gives a shit? Anyway, Chloe has wounds and she needs to heal, and she finds Rachel Amber and she's like, wow, Rachel's awesome. But then you find out Rachel has issues too, and her issues are a little more social, because the first part of the game builds up to, turns out that the reason that she wants you to play hooky with her while you're in school, or leave school to play hooky, is because you want to find this guy and this gal kissing, and then of course things go crazy, and Chloe's like, hey, I'm sorry I almost screwed things up after I flipped out on you, and Rachel's like, whatever, look, the reason I asked her up is because that couple that we saw in the park, that was my dad, and he was kissing this woman that wasn't my mom. So you immediately go, oh shit, there's trouble in paradise. And that's Rachel Amber. Rachel Amber is the gates of Eden are closing, because you get this idea that her dad is this DA, her mom is like this trophy. Well, she's not a trophy mom. Her mom is actually like a nice gal who's model wife kind of person, and Rachel is like, yeah, but my dad's a cheating asshole. But there's something going on here, and then you find out that her mom is actually a reformed drug addict, and she's trying to reconnect with her kid, but also she's talking to gangsters, and you're thinking, but what's going on here? And then you as Chloe feel obligated to help her out. And part one is about you starting your friendship and endearing yourself to Rachel. Part two is you doing some investigation, and you encounter some more classmates, and you encounter some bad guys and some good guys. And then it ends with a moment of, you're like, Dad, why don't you just admit that you're cheating on Mom? And he's like, Rachel, that woman wasn't like my mistress. That woman was your real mother. Oh crap, mind blown. And then cut, and then the beginning of 3 is Rachel going, her dad's like, all right, look, that was your real mother. Your mom here is actually just this gal I met when you were a baby, and she's amazing, and she agreed to be your mother and my wife, and she's awesome, and she's really your mother. But this other girl, Sarah, is your biological mother, but I had to get away from her. More importantly, he makes the point, I had to get you away from her because she was too wild and free-spirited. She was a drug addict, like a heroin addict. I think it's heroin. It could technically be whatever, just a fictional, like, bad drug that is really bad for you. It's not weed. Clearly, she's like shooting up in her veins. But basically, but then you find out that her dad has been talking to this gangster to try and scare her away. And then you're kind of like, well, is her dad really a nice guy? Or is he just... Anyway, it culminates into some moments where Frank sort of redeems himself. He kills this one gangster for you because he realizes that this guy's going into the dark side, and Frank is like, no, if this town's going to have a gangster, it's going to be me, because at least I have a goddamn compass. I have a small moral compass, but it's there, whereas, this other douchebag, it doesn't. And I will say that there are some moments that I feel like could have been built up to, like they could have been built up a little bit better like that, or there could have been a few more things to go into that, like your relationship with Mikey and was it Nicole? It doesn't really matter. The point is, there's a lot of things about Before the Storm that I feel like are there for fun. Side note, they do have a D&D. They have a couple of short D&D moments in that game, and damn, do I have fun playing that. Even though I'm a nerd who plays Pathfinder, which is a D&D variant, on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday right now, and it's like I'm getting enough of that. Why would I want to play a video game where they do that again? It's because I'm a loser. What do you want? Gin time. Probably trade off with the wine. Leaves you a better aftertaste. Anyway, um, Before the Storm is, despite its rough edges, like Chloe, still fun. I enjoy Before the Storm. I enjoy Before the Storm. Um, I like having little marathons where you start off with Before the Storm, and then you go into one, and you get two very different experiences that you still get something out of. And it has two different stories, but they have some similar overlap characters, and ultimately you get something great when you start that point and you end at that point. There is an add-on little prequel game where you play as Max and Chloe when they're kids, but it's, spoiler alert, you find out at the end of that one, it's a one-shot little episode game part. Despite that, the fun little girl things that they're doing and recalling when they were younger and were little kids, it basically, that episode ends with like, oh, it turns out it's the day where you find out that William was killed in a car crash. And it ends with a funeral, and then depending on how you play it, you can leave Chloe off on this very cathartic and fulfilling moment, or you can leave her off on this moment that makes you go, oh, this is not good timing. None of this is great timing, and in fact, it all sucks for you. Sorry, but I honestly don't really even like playing that one episode shot because I feel like it was just there for the fans to get something more out of. But I do feel, I would argue that the game devs should have considered just saying, cut that, make that episode 4 in this prequel that's 4 episodes instead of 3, and then you get more with these other characters. It builds up in certain ways, in ways that get a little bit dramatic, but they're kind of believable, and they're not cut to like encapsulated conversations with people. And that's really all I have to say about that. As a side note, I do like that there are a bunch of little things too. Like the game is called Before the Storm, and you discover that at the end of the first game that Rachel Amber's whatever, her charisma, her spirit, basically her actions cause like a forest fire. And then in episode 2, they actually put on Shakespeare's The Tempest. And honestly, I'm not a big Shakespearean, so I actually went and after the game, I was like, I'm actually going to watch a production of The Tempest, and just see what it's about, because you get glimpses of it in the game, but they don't do the whole Tempest. They do portions of it, and you as Chloe have to do this one scene early on in like Act 1. But I do like that there are little things like that, and then episode 3, it's sort of like the calm and the storm, but things get crazy around it. And it still alludes to this idea that she's an interesting gal and you obviously have something for her. Now, I will say the end of that decision, the end game decision that's left, do you choose A or B, is for me not as endearing, but I will admit when I first played through it, and that was the final pivotal decision, is do you choose to lie to her and basically make it to where she's happy with her family, or do you tell her everything and then make Rachel really go, I'm now just not going to give a crap about my mom and my dad? Although there is a chance, depending on how you play it, where you choose that option and then she does reconnect with her real biological mother, Sarah, and it's implied that that's the best version of that ending. But if you don't do it, then you just get it to where she goes, fuck my mom and dad, and I'm just going to hang out with Chloe now, and we're both going to be delinquents. But if you do the other option where you lie to her, Chloe's like, well, things aren't as spicy, but she's happy because she's living in this fantasy world with her mom and dad. I will say I don't think the themes are as crazy with that. I mean, I do think that it kind of plays off the idea that, especially when Chloe's having these nightmares with her dad, and she starts off idolizing her dad as like the ghost of this perfect guy in her life, and then you get to this point where it's kind of you get faced with this real question. And the ghost of her father even asks her, like, hey, do you really want to know all the things I didn't tell you as your dad? You know, parents have to make sacrifices, and sometimes they have to lie to their kids in order to make sure things go well. That's just life. And then Chloe sort of either has to accept that or deal with it somehow. I don't think those themes are where I'm at in my... excuse me. Oh, God, all that booze. All that hooch. I think where I'm at in my life, I don't appreciate that much. I'm not a parent. I don't have kids. I'm not married. maybe I would appreciate that more if I was older and I had a family and I can kind of understand that. But I think that just from where I'm at right now, that doesn't speak to me as much. The first Life is Strange speaks to me, even though I'm like 30 and it's been a while since I was a teenager and I've grown as a person since I was a teenager, at least I hope. I can still feel the struggle and character profile and analyze Max and Chloe, Max more so, and feel like the artistic struggle and all the other things that we want to do in our life and all the problems that we can encounter and all the darkness that we don't want to deal with. The themes of Before the Storm are like, well, Chloe needs to grow up, but I understand where she's at right now and it may take a while. And the choice of I'm going to lie to my friend and make her happy, or I'm going to tell the truth to my friend, ruin her relationship so that we can both just do our own thing. I don't know. It's kind of hard. And of course, I know there's probably more to be read into that. But where I'm at right now, I'm not as impacted by Before the Storm. I'm very much impacted by 1. And I will say, but like I said, I still do occasional marathons where I'll do Before the Storm and then 1, and just play it and say, what kind of persona, what are my goals here, and then just structure it that way. And I still have a good time doing it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to say about Before the Storm or Life is Strange. Oh, I guess I will say one thing. In the first Life is Strange, all of the pause in the moment, what decisions are you going to make? Decisions? Or like the hard decisions that you can make, like, oh, do you do A or B? What will happen? I do feel like in Before the Storm, there's not as many good ones. There's a few where it's like there's a moment where David is like, hey, Chloe, it's like episode 3, and David's like, hey, Chloe, I want to have a conversation with you just about one thing. And then he pulls out a photo of his dead army buddy, and it's obvious he's trying to connect with, he's trying to do a favor to Joyce, and he's trying to connect with Chloe, and he's trying to say like, hey, look, I know what kind of pain you're going through. It's not the exact same pain, but I kind of know what you're feeling. This is my army buddy that he randomly died, and there's not a day I don't go by thinking about why he's alive and he's a better man, or like the fact that he's a better man than I am and he's dead and I'm alive, and there's not a day that goes by that doesn't hit me. And then of course you're left with, what decisions are you going to make? Are you going to make the rebellious decision and go, fuck you, you don't know me, I don't care about you and your dead friend? Or are you going to make the decision that's, you know what, David, I think I have a better understanding of you, and right now I don't really want to deal with you, but I appreciate what you're saying, and I will keep this photo and think about what you said. Basically, that's like the best. That's like literally the worst. How do I put it? That is the most exemplary decision. That is just, why would anybody want to pick? Like, unless you just wanted to see what would happen, you're gonna go, you know what? I feel for these people. They're in pain. They all have loss, and they're trying to figure each other out. I'm gonna connect with David. Like, it doesn't make any sense for me not to. But then I'm thinking, like, how many rebellious teenagers and young people go, oh, screw them, I don't want anything to do with them, would still go, I don't give a crap. Unfortunately, I do feel like there are some that would do that. So maybe it's real, but it's just, it feels like from an arc or a narrative standpoint, she should have just been like, I feel like the option should have been like, she connects with David, or she just goes, look, we're not the same. This isn't my dad and you. This isn't you. You are not me and my dad. But you know what? Is it a, like, I don't know. I guess the other option should have been like, instead of black and white, it should have been, it's either you connect with David or you just acknowledge what he said and you go, all right, look, thanks, whatever. I gotta go. And she just leaves. I kind of feel like most teenagers in that situation would not go, oh, fuck you. You think that you're going to connect with me clearly because you lost your buddy and I lost my dad, and just because we've lost somebody, it's the same thing? I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Basically what I'm saying is there's not many, when you play as Max, whenever you hit those decisions of like, do I do A, B, or C, even if you pick A or B and you generally feel good, she'll still say something that can be a problematic consequence. Like, oh no, I just cut my, there goes my career at Blackwell Academy. I'm going to be a high school dropout. Or, oh no, this person's going to come after me now, but I don't know what to do. Like, it feels like there's going to be consequences, A or B. It's like shades of gray, whereas I feel like in Before the Storm, it's a little bit more black and white most of the time. But there are some decisions where it's like, you can do whatever you want, it's fine. Anyway, so I guess what I'm saying is Before the Storm is not as good as 1, but it is a fun little precursor to 1, and playing through the whole thing makes me feel good. And I enjoy it, and I like being in those games and being in the moment. So, I think I've said everything I wanted to about 1. Now, I need to talk about Life is Strange 2. And we're going to take a gin time. So let me get to Life is Strange 2. Now, I will say that I love Life is Strange 1. I do not love Life is Strange 2. I think that Life is Strange 2 is an impactful game. I do think it is a palpable game. I do think it is far more grounded. I do think it deals much more with contemporary themes. I do think it deals with topical themes. I do think it's in general more topical, way more topical than 1 is. And I do think that it's a little bit more, well, not a little bit, in some cases a lot, more political. Whereas the first game, it feels like you're in this fictional world that at least you know was in America. But in the first game, it feels like it's more of its own original independent kind of story in its own world that you can associate with. Life is Strange 2 is like, no, they're straight up in Seattle. They deal with racism, they deal with prejudice, they deal with all kinds of problems, and they deal with, not getting shot by the popo and stuff like that. I will just flat out say that in general, and this is a subjective criticism, I'm not a fan of games or any sort of media that is really, really topical and political. I'm not a fan of that crap. If I want to get topical and political, I don't need to play a game or read a book. I can just turn on the news. I play games and read books to escape. I'm obviously with books. I'm a history minor, and I love history. I love reading history, and I do think history is fascinating, and there's other books, nonfiction, that are interesting as well. But ultimately, if I'm going into something entertaining, I want it to be an escapist feeling and not a realistic, grounded, real-world problems feeling. Because again, I feel like I can open up a newspaper or pull up my phone and pull up like the New York Times app or the BBC World app or something like. You know what I mean? So Life is Strange 2 automatically is not going to leave a good taste in my mouth based off that. Now, I'm not going to do a compliment sandwich, but I will say just the things about it that I do enjoy. Life is Strange 2 is a different game. It's about young people. Technically speaking, it's about young people trying to figure out what to do, and somebody gets powers, and what do you do with it? In this game, they change up the formula. You're playing as a young Hispanic. Well, you're playing as a young man, happens to be Hispanic, normal teenage boy who is trying to figure out what to do with his life, and it's obvious that he's not sure what to do with his life. And he has a younger brother, and they're just one day. It's like early in October. There's this one day where they're chilling out, and then he gets into a fight. The next door neighbor starts to bully Daniel because Daniel was being a dumb little shit because he's a little kid. He's like 9 years old, 8 years old or something. And then you go out to try and defend him, and you're met with your first story choice of like, do you confront the bully, or do you try to be a bigger brother who's responsible? But ultimately, he says things that are offensive. You punch him out, and then you get into a fight, and then a police officer who's clearly not sure what to do here. He's really nervous. He shows up, and he thinks he sees this kid covered in blood. Turns out it's fake blood, but he thinks this kid is attacked or dying or something. And then he pulls out his gun, and he's like, both of you on the ground. And they're like, wait, don't shoot us. And then their dad comes out, and then the officer's like, hey, you stop. And the dad's trying to defuse the situation, and the cops, either he pulled the trigger when he wasn't realizing it, or the gun went off. Either way, he screwed up. The dad immediately dies, and then the only thing you remember is your younger brother going, no, and then there's this just giant telekinetic explosion. And then you wake up and you realize that the cop car is overturned, the cop is dead, Brett's wounded, your dad was shot, and then Daniel's unconscious, and so you, Sean, have to go, oh, I don't know what to do here, and you have to pick Daniel up and literally go on the lam. You have to go on the run. And the game is about journey. It's a journey game. It's a survival and endurance game. It's a game about getting to your end destination and learning things along the way, and there you go. I will just say Life is Strange 2, it deals with themes of racism, nationality, gender, and then of course the game itself is you're playing as this teenage boy about to be a man, taking care of your younger brother who's still a little kid, but he gets powers and you don't, and you have to deal with that. And then you have to the whole game is sort of like a parenting game where you have to sort of like you know, like, do you make this kid? Do you try to be a responsible big brother and make sure this kid makes the right decisions, or do you say screw it, I don't care, we're going to survive, and everybody else can go to hell, and have the kid make selfish, mean decisions? Do you encourage his? Well, the first episode, you don't really mess with his powers until at the literal very end, and then the second episode starts, and that's where you actually start messing and training his powers. Um, and then eventually, as the game goes along, there's many different moments where you go, hey, we should do this. Hey, Daniel, you should use your powers. No, Daniel, don't use your powers. Hey, Daniel, do this thing that might be kind of violent or dangerous. Daniel, don't do this thing that might be violent or dangerous. It's a parenting kind of simulator, and in this case, you have to deal with the sad themes of being forced into that kind of role when you're way too young and unprepared and not mature enough. You are on a journey. You meet interesting characters along the way. You meet bad people. You meet good people, and then you just meet neutral parties. And then you make decisions that might influence you from the get-go that go into the very end. Um, and Life is Strange 2, you, I think the game ultimately goes down to, because it plays off of this motif of like a wolf pack and family, and what do you do with that? There it goes into these themes of like ultimately the game is like, it's not about you, it's about what you do to influence and shape your younger brother. That's what the game is about. And your younger brother has powers, so you need to doubly make sure you do your job right. Otherwise, who knows what he can do? Who knows how dangerous he might become? Life is Strange 1 ends the game with two options, whereas Life is Strange 2, I've discovered there's technically 4 different endings. And there might be little things that influence who you see in those endings or what's in the background, but ultimately there's 4 endings. And I don't want to jump around too much timeline-wise, but I will just get to the points about Life is Strange 2 I want to talk about. Life is Strange 2, I mean, there's so much going on here. This is the time where I review my notes. I do largely say that there's a lot of things about this game that I do enjoy. I do think this game is designed well. I think the environments, all of the nature areas, even like the marijuana greenhouses in the middle of the redwood forest in episode 3 are interesting, and they're beautifully well sculpted. In episode 5, you sort of take the time to view this canyon and the dry earthiness, and you are doing it with appreciating, like reconnecting with your own mother who sort of got estranged from y'all. I do think that there are certain things that the game sort of misses the mark on, or maybe they were planning and they just weren't sure what to do with. For one, I do think that the game is not trying to advocate drug use, but then you meet people that are drifters and that are like, yeah, we're going to booze it up and weed it up, or and it's like, who gives a crap? We're not hurting anybody. But yet there's moments where like you with Sean are not going to let your brother try beer, even though you both are fucking stressed out, running from the cops, you're wanted, you've dodged bullets, both of you could die tomorrow depending on if things go bad for you. Like, if I was him, I would be like, look, I'm trying to be a responsible older brother. They should have given you the option to go, all right, Daniel, you can try this beer, you're probably not going to like it. And of course, a 9-year-old's not going to like beer. Not unless it tastes really good, which most beer doesn't. It tastes like beer and you have to enjoy it as an adult. And then, but then, like, even the weed, I think, like, you know what, dude, we're stressed out, let's try it out. Like, here, you can take a puff. And of course, the 9-year-old is going to go, oh God, why do you people smoke this? And then all of them are going to get a laugh out of that. And then maybe the kid will think about that and that'll influence them. But ultimately, I feel like, I hate to say this, I knew people in high school that I thought were hardcore because they had done drugs and alcohol. And then most of them had started doing it when they were in middle school. So, and sometimes it's just a matter of they're exposed to it or they know people that are doing it. And I kind of feel like in the game they should have explored that. Now, I do think they were probably thinking, like, if little kids happen to be playing this game, they don't want to say, hey, it's little kids, it's okay to drink and smoke pot. And obviously, I don't want to advocate that. But I do think that from a game standpoint, there's little things like that kind of make me go, so what are you guys' commentary on beer and pot in general? I can't figure out if you're saying that it's bad or good. I mean, with the case of like Chris's dad, who's clearly an alcoholic, who's depressed and he was angry and he's sad and he's longing for his wife, he has a problem. for these people who live out in the woods, who are outcast and drifters, who can't go back to their family life, and who are trying to just survive, smoking pot is probably not that big a deal. Drinking a beer every once in a while is probably not that big a deal. Again, be responsible for those of you who are watching this video. I don't want anybody coming back on me. And then there's other little things too that I do want to mention. I do appreciate that in Life is Strange 2, you can tell that the game developers had things like disability considerations, like instead of just tapping the X button really, really fast, you can hold it down instead. And then there's other things like you can mute all of the licensed music. So I guess they were thinking like, well, people might record Let's Plays with this game. Let's turn off all the music that might get them, you know, what's the term, copyright infringement or flagged by Content ID or some crap like that. I get it. So those kind of considerations are interesting, but it also changes the experience if you do it that way. So I like that there's that forward thinking. But then there's other programming things that I have an issue with, like for one, like there's times where people are in another room, or and then you really have to jack up the audio in order to hear, if at all, what that other person is saying. And then in some cases, like in episode 4, Agent Flores goes into the bathroom to take a phone call. You have to jack up the volume, and then at some point she starts speaking Spanish, and I'm like, I only know so much Spanish. I know very little. I know very little Spanish. But that's not the point. The point is they could have at least said, maybe have like off to the side, you see the subtitles, like here, I'll use this. Off to the side, they could have had the subtitles right here if like Agent Flores went off in that direction. You know what I mean? And they don't do things like that. There's a scene in 3 where Meryl and Big Joe are like take a minute to go and deal with stuff in their room, and you have to jack the audio up really loud to hear even what they're saying. Now, granted, they do have immediate like foreground action and interaction that you're supposed to deal with, but there's something about like what's going on behind that wall. I want to know what they're being said. Otherwise, why even record it? There's little moments like that where I do think they missed the mark. But those are nitpicky criticisms. I have a lot of nitpicky criticisms for 2. Other things to look at. Subtitling, things like that. Now I will, and then there's other little things like the game obviously doesn't want to show underage nudity and sex, but if they're gonna have scenes where you and I'm not gonna lie, I was Sean Diaz trying to get into Cassidy's pants because I was like, Cassidy is cute, she's funny, she's gorgeous, she's fun. Like if I was Sean Diaz, I'm like, and of course, and I don't think it's perverted to think like this. You're living through like these natural human fantasies. You know, when you're reading a book about like 2 young people making love, even if you're 50, you can appreciate that. And I don't think that's creepy. You know what I mean? Or something like that. So for me, it's like there's sex and nudity bias. Like for example, you do get to see Cassidy's breasts. But you don't get to see like her vagina at any point. You do see Sean without clothes, but you don't get to see him naked. For those of you who are gay or who are the young women out there who think that might be hot. And then there's other things like it opens up with you see a nude, well, half nude Hannah from like, you see nude Hannah from like the waist up, and she just is like, and they get the idea like, oh, okay, so episode 3 is going to have sexual content and nudity, but really not that much. And I get that they can only show so much without it just being really gratuitous, but all I'm going to say is just show body parts. If you're going to make it to where it's like they're hippies living out in the woods, surviving, they're literally having to survive stressful situations, and they might get shot. I think that it's okay to be like, well, a young teenage man is probably going to want to get laid anyway. It's okay if he wants to get laid with this young woman or even this young man, but they didn't. I will say I don't think they explored that too much with Finn. I think they just kind of gave you the option to make out with him, and I think, but as a dirty old man, I would rather see Sean and Cassidy having heterosex than Sean and Finn having sex or like homosex. But even then, I do feel like the way they structured it, it's sort of like, you know, is he just experimenting or does he really feel this way? I kind of feel like they're giving you, the player, the option, but it's only so built up. It felt like he was really wanting to get into Jen's pants at the very beginning of the game. So, but I don't know. I guess the game is like, if you go on an adventure, you're going to change. The world's going to be different. Or maybe you discover things about yourself. Sure, okay, fine. But like actually explore that and don't be locked into like heteronormative shit. Or like just have the guts to be like, it's okay if we show 2 young teenage boys kissing and like in a teenage boy and a teenage girl kissing. And if either party is having sex, okay, we're just going to show a quick second of it or allude to it or just show them naked or something. Because this isn't supposed to be like a game that promotes Like, this is not supposed to be a game that promotes pedophilia. This is supposed to be a game that's like, in that moment, you're Sean Diaz. You're gonna want to have sex with Cassidy, or you may go, no, I don't really like Cassidy. I don't want my Sean to have sex with Cassidy. Which I don't, it is what it is at this point. I think the game kind of brings out, it gives you the option to bring out things, but it doesn't fully explore them. Also, how come there's no option to be poly? There's no real option to be poly. I'm just saying. Anyway, that's just one thing, maybe from like a creator bias, or maybe from a programming standpoint. They said we can only do so much. Let's just give it a little bit here, because if we go to, look, I'm not an idiot. I get it. If they do too much sex, they're going to be like, wow, this game is really creepy. Are all the people that don't know a bunch of pedos? It's like, well, no, that's not the point. I mean, they're young people. Young people have sex. It's fine. That's natural. Obviously, you can only show so much. I get it. But I'm just saying, be fair about it. If you're going to have these legitimate options, show something for a few seconds, and then you're done. That way, the people playing the game, they can live out these fun little fantasies in an environment that doesn't hurt anybody. But also, if they want to be open-minded, okay, fine. What if you reach an audience and you make people more open-minded? That's good. I would argue that's a good thing. Anyway, that's just me. There's some other things I want to mention too. There's elements that I don't know if they were supposed to be recurring elements, or if they were just there to kind of lead you into a direction you're not sure about. Like, for example, in episode 1, you encounter this raccoon out in the woods, or at least you see him and you can point him out. Episode 2, there's a raccoon that pops up on the table when you're in the cabin in the first game, and then there's like, hey, our old buddy Raccoon's back, and then they kind of make a joke about it. And then in episode 3, they don't pinpoint it, but there's some point when you're walking by and you'll notice there's a raccoon that goes to eat at the garbage in where the campground is, but then if you get close, the raccoon scurries away. So I was sitting there thinking like, okay, well, the raccoon is an element. Well, in episode 4 and 5, there's no raccoon. There is like a little coyote, and then in episode 5 there's a scorpion. But I was sitting there thinking like, was this an element that was supposed to be there, or are they trying to say like everything is going in a natural flow, but then 4 starts up with like, oh no, you've been caught, so now you have to go into the realm of society, which is in some ways unnatural. I don't know. Those are things that I think you could read into if you wanted to, but I feel like there's no point. Or rather, there should have been a point, but there's not. Anyway, what else do I got here? In the first episode, you're having to deal with money and resource management and feeding like your younger brother and yourself at one point. But money and the resource usage doesn't ever really come into play at any other point in the game, at least not in a way that's going to directly impact your gameplay. In episode 4, you can choose to give Jacob and his younger sister like all of your money that you saved because his sister Sarah Lee is sick, and there is a part of you that's like, all right, look, take our money. You probably need it more than I do, and if anything happens to her, we'll feel kind of bad because she's obviously a sweet kid. But the problem is no other episode has resource management or like getting money. It alludes to we were trying to save up. And then in episode 2, it's like we want to get a present for Daniel, but you can't really, but you don't have enough to get a present for the family. But I guess you don't want them to know that you snuck out of the house. But at the same time, I do feel like there should have been an option for that. Like, what's the point? Episode 4 and 5, it just kind of alludes to how much money you either have or don't have. But you don't do any resource management. You don't ever go to the store and buy stuff at that point. And I was thinking that was going to be a game where or like something in the game as it goes along to where you kind of have to deal with it. But again, it's just that one and done grocery store in episode 1 with the stampers, and that's it. And I'm curious, and again, those are things where I'm like, was there an intention to do more of that? I don't know. That's the problem. I will say I do like the musical. Maybe it's just because they have a bigger budget or it's gotten more popular. There is like more interesting music choices. In the first Life is Strange, I felt like it was all soft, indie, hipstery stuff. Not to be mean to people that like that music. If that's your stuff, that's fine. 2, I felt like they were able to branch out and get a few more fun, poppy sounding stuff or things that were like really, really impactful. Like at the end of episode 3, at the very end, regardless of what you did, and you find out that Daniel left, there's that song that's like, I didn't mean to hurt you, or, whatever. And it's like, it's really a really moody song, and it's used perfectly and synced well with this part of the game, and it cuts off at 3, and you go, ooh, what's going to happen now? And it's like, done really well. Things like that. There's another song in 3 like where Sean wakes up and realizes he's late to the truck, so it plays that song that's like I don't remember the name of it, but it plays like this fun little techno-y poppy kind of song, and it's like okay, well that's cool. So they know what they're doing with music, in my opinion, a little bit better now. But even if you didn't like that music or you like the one in Life is Strange 1 better, that's fine. I'm not the music guy. This isn't, what's his name? Todd. I'm not Todd in the Shadows. I'm not the music buff. I'm just making a comment about generally receiving what is available. In addition, so let's see what else we got here. There's moments that I feel like I don't know if these were subtly built in from the start moments or if they were literally on the go decisions to be made because the game was being released in an episodic format. For example, and again, 3 is sort of like that weird little turning ground. At the beginning of 3, you have a flashback where like 4 or 5 months before the first game starts, you get into a fight with your brother and you both accidentally break your dad's like mechanic trophy. And then I was sitting there going like, and then of course you don't really get the option to fix it or anything. You just kind of know that like, oh okay, and like okay, I get it. They're saying like your quarrel will upend your house. Your quarrel will be your father's undoing, which technically that's what happened. But I also was sitting there thinking like, oh yeah, there's a trophy with wrenches. And then when I went back and replayed it, an episode after 3 had come out, I went back on the first episode and I was like, okay, well, yes, that trophy is there, and it's missing a couple of wrenches off. It's like obviously the trophy's a little broken, but I was sitting there thinking like, how come there's not a dialogue option to like highlight it and go, oh, Dad's trophy. Still feel bad about breaking it. I mean, technically it's Daniel's fault, but what am I saying? Like I was sitting there thinking like that option was there, but it's not. And then also there's a moment where you give Daniel this watch before the whole thing falls apart, and then in episode 3 at some point you're like you can ask him about why he's not wearing his watch anymore, and then if you go to bed with him instead of staying to get your hair cut, he goes, hey, here's that watch you gave me, the reason I'm not wearing it anymore is because it's getting too tight for my wrist. And then I was like, wait, time out, if he gave you the watch, wouldn't it fit around Sean's wrist? How big are your wrists, kid? Anyway, the point is I think there's little elements like that where they wanted to go back and read. I don't know if those are subtly implanted moments or if those are moments that as they were making the episode, because they probably had a bit more dev freedom releasing the episode 3 months after each one or 4 months after each one. Well, like, are these moments that are supposed to be subtly built up? If not, they're really subtly built up to the point where I question why are they even here. And then I didn't even think to go in the first episode back and be like, is this kid wearing the watch? I didn't, because again, the watch feels like it's an incidental. He wants to be like you allow him to be like you, but then the tragedy of 3 is he's not going to be like you anymore. He wants to be like this other guy, but that's because you've had to be his parent for months, and you're both still surviving, and you don't have your warm beds and the pizza that you want like you're used to. Anyway, so there's moments like that where I question what exactly was the plan from the start. I will make a point that, and the reason I'm saying this is because the first Life is Strange, not Before the Storm necessarily, but the first Life is Strange, 1 through 5, the whole thing, the first Life is Strange feels like somebody's baby. It feels like this was an idea that at least one person had and was thinking about for a while, and they turned it into a game. All those little micro elements that sort of like, again, like Alan Moore, they all kind of flow into each other. The idea that she's a photographer and she has the ability to freeze time so she can take that photograph and that she can fast forward and rewind it because her photographs can impact people just like her decisions can impact people. And there was all these references and little fun references and artsy references. With 2, I don't feel like 2 was somebody's baby. I feel like 2 was them trying to say, how can we make something that's fun but still emotional and relevant? And somebody was like, there's a lot of, in America, there's all this talk about stuff on the border and this discrimination against Hispanics. And then somebody went, ooh, that's topical, and that'll get people talking. Cut to print. Let's go into the writing room. Life is Strange 2 had these moments where I feel like I don't know what was planned from the start and what was added onto later. And that does get a little annoying after a while. If you've ever seen the remake of the Battlestar Galactica show on Sci-Fi Channel with Edward James Olmos and all those other people, that's a show that we know now the writers had no idea how they were going to end it. They just started writing it, kept it going, and then finally they said, hey, we need to finish it. And then they went off into this weird spiritual, prophetic direction with weird character decisions, and it just got odd. And the show felt like it was out of place. And I feel like with Life is Strange 2, there were some similar moments like that. Anyway, not to just keep harping it on, I will say again, that's one of the reasons I love Life is Strange 1. It feels like somebody had this idea, they worked it out and hammered it out and wrote it and thought it and put it together, and it was very much intact. 2, I feel like they were kind of slapping certain things on and deleting things as they were going along, and then realized that we made what we made. Oh well. Anyway. There's other little annoyances that I have with 2, like for example, there's choices where you have a timer, like you have to make this decision now. You have to choose between A, B, or C, and there's a little timer, and if you don't, it'll default to something. But then there's other decisions where there is a timer, but they just don't show it to you. And that is aggravating. There's no point in doing that. Like if the decision is going to be a timed decision, because it's not like we're not going to go back and replay this, especially when there's multiple endings and we all want to just see what would happen if we did A instead of B, instead of D or C or even F. Why not put a timer on the decisions that are going to legitimately be timed? It feels unnecessary. And again, that makes me wonder, is that there to screw with you as a player, or did they just go, we ran out of time? I'm thinking it's probably more to screw with you as a player, but I'm like, but then why offer any decisions with a timer at all? Why don't they just say, here, you can do this. Oh, it went away. Too bad. We're not going to tell you how long you get. You just either have to choose it and say something or do something, or you don't. That's all you get. It seems kind of lame. From a programming standpoint, that's just aggravating and it's sloppy. And I don't care if they wanted to have a point to that. It's not a good point. I'll say it. And I know, look, I'm not trying to be a jackass. I know that programming and making a video game is not easy. I get it. They made something and that took a long time, and there's so many different little things in the game that they could do, and one tiny glitch can script the whole thing. I get it. I'm not trying to be a hard ass. Just saying. If you're going to make something, make sure you're doing it right. Simple as that. Or just think about what you're doing and at least test it out ahead of time and go, did you like this or not like this? Because there's nothing worse than getting a final product and finding out that, oh crap, it's still not done. Any game like that is going to be BS. Just saying. Now, there's other things too, like when you finish an episode, it shows you like you did this instead of this, and there were times where you realize these are what the other story options were. But there's moments where I feel like they say, oh, you did this, and then there's like 2 or 3 different story decisions that were dependent on that. So why spread things out? Like for example, episode 2. In episode 2, there's a pivotal moment early on where Mushroom got attacked by a cougar or a mountain lion, whatever, and you can either choose to let Daniel kill the cougar for revenge, or you can choose to go, no, Daniel, don't do anything. I'm going to protect you. And then the cougar takes Mushroom's body and they go off into the woods, and both of you were kind of sad and heartbroken. Well, when you get to the end of that episode, it says you let Daniel kill the cougar, or you drove the cougar away and Daniel didn't use his power. And then underneath that is a separate story option or choice option that says you were able to bury Mushroom, you weren't able to give Mushroom a proper burial. And I was sitting there thinking like, wait, so does that mean there's a way you can drive off the cougar but still get Mushroom's corpse? Or does that mean that you can kill the cougar but not be able to bury Mushroom? Because that's what that implies. But no, there's not. If you kill the cougar, you get to bury Mushroom. And those 2 options are always going to be that on the consequence chart. So the fact that they separated that doesn't really make any sense. They should have just crammed it together and said, you killed the cougar and buried Mushroom. You didn't kill the cougar, and it went back into the woods with Mushroom's body. Why are you separating that into 2 options? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And it's misleading. That's the problem. It's misleading. So I guarantee there's going to be gamers racking themselves going, is there a way for me to bury Mushroom but not kill the cougar? No, as far as I can tell, there's not, unless you mod the game or some crap like that, which doesn't count because that's not what the game makers initially made. Anyway, there's also, I will say that the one thing about the game that I personally am not a fan of is, I already said it, the game is topical, it's contemporary, it's dealing with a political issue in America, and the issue involves racism and nationality and being accused of crimes just because you're different. And ultimately, the big theme is justice. Where is the justice for these two? Is it going to just continue to be injustice? These are really big, heady themes. These are important things. They affect not just these people; they affect everybody. Um, I I feel largely like the game resolution of there's not going to be justice for these two is kind of lame. And I do also ultimately feel like when you get to these story decisions, the people that you encounter are missing the mark, and something isn't quite right. Just to give you an example, at no point when you're talking to these people, like when you're talking to Agent Flores, when you're talking to Officer Campbell, when you're talking to anybody that's, that doesn't know, that kind of knows your background or doesn't know about, that you're actually decent people on the run, at no point does anybody ask, what's up with the weird explosions? And there's no option for you to just go, all right, you want to know the truth? Fuck it. Fuck it. Here's the truth. My younger brother developed superpowers. He's telekinetic. I don't know where he gets them from. I don't know even how he got them. All I know is we saw our dad got shot in front of us, and then he killed the police officer. There. You want to hear it? He used his telekinetic powers. I don't care how it sounds. That's the reality, and I have to deal with that. He has to deal with that, and then we have to tell people that and not have them look at us like they're crazy. That never happens. They just allude to the fact there's weird explosions and things happen as they go along. Realistic, it's not even a matter of like grounded realism, it's a matter of like human behavior. Somebody is going to stop and go, what's with the weird explosions? Would you mind telling me what that's about? Nobody asked that, especially near the end of the game where you're dealing with law enforcement officials that have been told from the beginning of the game to find you and arrest you because you're a problem. But nobody is like, okay, can you please tell me what's up with these explosions? Because scientifically there would be blast residue, but there's no incendiary or blast residue. There's no fire. There's no explosive. It's just like a kinetic wave. What's going on? How are you guys doing that? Is this like technology that hasn't been invented yet? Or does your little brother happen to have superpowers? No one ever asked that, and you don't ever get a chance to clarify that. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, realistically, a young, frustrated teenage man is at some point probably gonna. Now, look, I get it. You let Cassidy know, Jacob know, Finn know, and then unfortunately that doesn't go well. When in episode 4 you go to that preacher and she sees, oh my God, this kid has powers. It's a gift from the Lord, and it's obvious that she's just using them and stuff like that. That's a separate scenario. He's using his powers, but obviously there's skepticism versus is he a divine miracle? But the point is, when you get caught by the fucking cops at the end of 5, you would think that they would go, all right, look, I'm willing to help you out, but you got to answer some honest questions for me. What's up with these weird explosions? I am boggled by that. And you don't ever get a chance to say anything. It's stupid. And there's unfulfilling moments like that are frustrating from a narrative standpoint. And I don't want to hear any crap about like, well, if they told people, they wouldn't believe them. So what's the point of even let's just dance around that and have more fun with the other stuff. But I would like some action. Like if this game is going to be political topicality, at least have a realistic question asked. Like, so what's with the weird explosions? It's those decisions in the game that bother me because they make it go, oh, we don't want this game to be too real. Except for the fact that they're dealing with themes involving racism and prejudice and having to run from injustice, which are really powerful things. It bothers me from a narrative standpoint, from an exploratory standpoint, because these games are exploratory. What if I make these choices that goes in this direction? What if I chose that choice and it goes in this direction? It's a game about saying what would happen. They don't ever ask that question. It's stupid. And I understand them just saying, let's move past that because it's not going to go anywhere. But where is that Charles Dickens moment near the end where you're talking to Officer Campbell and he's like, look, I'm willing to help you out, but I need to know exactly what happened. And then you're faced with this decision of, do you tell him the truth and potentially risk you and something happening to your brother? Or, do you make a joke, or do you just stay silent and go, I'm not saying nothing to you without my lawyer or my phone call? But no, he is just straight up antagonistic to you. Everybody is straight up antagonistic to you. Except for, of course, like that Hispanic couple from Mexico that tried to sneak in. They're in the jail cell with you. Oh my God, the politics is so heavy-handed. That's another problem I'm having. It's heavy-handed. In the first episode, you deal with a cop who is like a bumming cop who ends up just killing your dad by accident because apparently all police officers are bumbling racists or something, right? I have to deal with that. I have friends, smart friends with degrees, who are convinced that all police officers are psychopaths and bullies. They're not trying to help the community, apparently. They're not putting on a badge for, in order to dispense justice, or because they saw something happen bad to, or because something bad happened to them or their family when they were younger and they said, I want to prevent this from happening. I have friends that are legitimately convinced that all cops are just douchebags. And I know better. I'm sorry, I don't want to start a discussion here, but not every police officer is a racist bully. Some people put on the badge because they like something bad happened to their family when they were younger, because they saw somebody get killed in front of them and nothing happened, because they were gangbangers in their neighborhood and they were like, somebody needs to stop them, or something. I'm just saying. I'm not. Look, I know. I get it. There was the Me Too. There's the Black Lives Matter movement, and there were cops that were obviously getting away with. Obviously, like you can go back to the '90s with like the Rodney King beating. Like, obviously, there is such a thing as police brutality and racial profiling and sexism, but not all cops are like that. So this game is portraying all cops as accidental, bumbling idiots that are just going to wait to murder you, or they just don't care about you. And then you have Agent Flores, who's just like, I'm going to hear the story until you get it right. And I'm just sitting there going like, why don't you just ask him, and why don't you have the option to go, do you want to know the truth? My brother has powers. That's why I'm so nervous about him. He could be doing anything right now, and people aren't going to be able to catch him. He can overturn cars. I saw him lift a 2-story redwood root, and he accidentally, and I don't think he intended to kill anybody. His powers erupted. It's frustrating that those moments aren't in there. But back to the politics problem. Episode 1, you encounter the Stampers. And of course, they're old, crusty, racist, white conservatives. And the guy, Hank Stamper, like whoops your ass and citizen arrests you and says, don't worry, the cops are on their way. And then, episode 2, there's like a couple of townies. There's like one townie that looks at you, and it's obvious that he's looking at you like an outsider. And then in episode 3, all of you are outsiders, and the guys you're dealing with are at worst criminals. At best, they're just kind of weirdos like yourself. 4, you're caught. You got to deal with the FBI. You got to deal with cops. You got to deal with crazy religious people. But there's, the people, the powers that be are kind of like, obviously you're a problem. Episode 5, you literally encounter, Minutemen that are willing to gun you down because you're legal immigrants. And then you encounter illegal immigrants, and you find out they're super nice people. The dad has a noticeable cross around his neck, like a noticeable cross, and it's indicating that he's a moral person. The other people obviously aren't moral. And then the mom is pregnant. She has an innocent baby growing in her. And you're sitting there going like, well, obviously I'm more inclined to be sensitive towards these people than these 2 Minutemen who are also locked up with you for fucking shooting you. More importantly, shooting Daniel instead of you, Sean, the older brother. So it's political. And then Officer Campbell comes in and is like, hey, Minutemen, shut up. Okay, I like that moment. Hey, illegal immigrants, whatever. And then he gets to you and he's like, look, don't worry about your younger brother. We got him. He's okay. And you're like, okay, maybe this guy is going to be that turning point. Maybe this is going to be the pivotal moment where you can try and get him on your side and risk seeing what he may or may not do. Or you can just lie, or you can keep your mouth shut. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen at all. He's straight up against you. Daniel has to bust in and go, F you, Officer Campbell. Sean, let's get out of here. Breaks your cuffs with his powers. Wine time. And then, of course, 2 cops are coming at you. It's like, do you kill him or do you restrain him or try and knock him out? Which, of course, that's like that's just a gut morality decision, because they're getting closer to you, but they don't stand at the end and start shooting at you. They're like, put your hands on the, they're slowly coming to you with their guns raised. Like, get on the ground, put your hands in the air, don't do anything stupid. And, they're obviously not just going to shoot you on sight. But then you get to the end, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, why wouldn't you leave this country? You're not going to get justice. The game has literally said, this is a system that you're not going to be able to fight. And the only people that are going to be able to fight are privileged white people or privileged people that play into the system like Agent Flores. You're not going to be able to get away with any of it. I mean, I guess they could have tried to written it and making it to where there's an ending where they have Daniel on camera doing weird telekinetic powers, and then it becomes a media headline, and then suddenly there's an ending where they talk about, like, are superheroes real? Turns out they are. Question is, have they always been here? That ending doesn't exist. You just go to Mexico. Or you don't go to Mexico, but either way, I'm just sitting there going, like, what is this game really trying to say? It's weird. The game wants to talk about real themes, but it's like they're not dealing with real people responding to these kinds of situations. They just think and know they just know you're a problem and you have to be stopped. It's bullshit. I'm sorry. From a writing standpoint, they were far more concerned with being politically correct, but it's not even being politically correct, because it's a matter of they're clearly showing the innocence of people on this side of the fence and the villainy of the people on this side of the fence. And the only people that are not villains are people that have no status. They have, like, Brody has no status. He has no say. He has no power. He's literally a random millennial blogger who's just willing to be a nice guy to help you out. All of the other weirdos, in a way, don't have any say or they can't really help you. Although, side note, I do need to talk about when you encounter David Madsen in episode 5 of Life is Strange 2. I'll get to that in a bit. But basically, it's like, the point is, you've gone on this long journey. You're going to have to keep running because you can't get justice. Things will never go in your direction, even though I do legitimately believe that they could have had an ending where you do just kind of, there is the surrender option, and you would think that there would be an interrogation room meeting where they go, all right, kids, just tell us everything that happened, and then they show you and they go, well, this kid, I guess he does have powers, but he's not a bad kid. He maybe just made a mistake, or when they say it erupted and he had no control over it, that needs to be taken into consideration, you know? And then they go, all right, well, we can't put this kid through the justice system. He's too young. Sean, we do have to put you through the justice system because technically you're, like, there's no, like, Sean just, here are all the ending options. The first one I got was Sean escapes to Mexico, but Daniel stays behind. It's implied that he kind of does like a minor juvie thing where he has to stay in the house for a while, but he still gets to go be a kid and go to school, and things are hunky-dory, and Sean and Cassidy are banging each other over in Mexico, and it's fine for them. It's implied Daniel is with his grandparents. They don't show Karen. I guess it's assumed that she does reconnect with them. But that ending was sort of like that's a pretty good ending. Second ending. You go across the border. Sean is trying to turn himself in, and Daniel's like, no, we have to escape, big brother. And then he gets him across, but then Sean's been shot by AK rounds or M4 rounds, and so Sean's dead. So Daniel makes a shrine to him. He's trying to draw like his older brother did, and he's on the beach, and then some gangsters come out, and then he uses his powers to disable all of them. He doesn't kill them. He doesn't kill them. He just beats the crap out of them, and it's sort of implied that he becomes like a dark superhero, more like an anti-hero, just like leave him alone, otherwise he will become a villain. If not, he'll be a hero. I guess that's what they're implying, which I thought was an okay ending. It's an ending that's not ideal, but it gets the point across of, well, you tried to make it, and this is just what happened. The third ending, I think it was called Reunion, and that's the one where you both give each other up. You both are trying to do the right thing, not hurt anybody. You give each other up. Sean goes to prison. Daniel grows up and has a great life. And then you literally wait for, like Daniel, Lila, and Karen, their mom. Lila, their friend. I haven't mentioned her just in this video, in case you haven't played it. Basically, you're waiting for Sean to get out of prison. It says like he's been in prison for like 15 years, so which means that when he comes out, he's in his early 30s. And of course, it's obvious that, you know, he didn't have a good time in prison, and then you go back to the woods from episode 1, and your younger brother's trying to catch up with you because he knows that you did everything. Like, he idolizes you still and respects you, but then Sean at some point just kind of starts breaking down crying, and then it's sort of implied that at the end of that ending, both of you are going to go in your separate directions, but things are going to be okay. Like, Sean will have a wild transitioning, and Daniel will turn out to be a great kid. You reared him well, you tried to teach him right, and he's going to be an awesome guy. He still has his powers, didn't shirk them completely. You know, things like that. And then the last ending is, what was it, Blood Brothers, where both of you escape intact to Mexico. You start your own garage. Daniel definitely uses his powers, and then whenever people try to mess with you, they definitely get their ass kicked by Daniel's powers. But then both of you are like, it ends up with you on the beach, kind of going like, well, we're kind of living the way Dad lived, and that's just how things went. So it's sort of implied like they get to Mexico okay together. One of them stays behind. One of them stays behind, and one of them gets across. Or uh, the younger one gets across, but the older one dies, which was a possibility. And then the other is just, like the older gets across, but the younger one's like, no, I'm gonna stay behind to protect our family name or something, and be with my grandparents or whatever. And Lila technically and Karen, and Sean's like, well, I'm gonna live it up in Mexico, and you guys can come and visit me. Oh, look, Cassidy's over here, and damn, if I was Sean, I would. Oh God, Cassidy is like the cutest thing. She's adorable. She's her own person. She's got a cute accent. She's sexy. Like if I was Sean, I would not mind living my life in Mexico with Cassidy. That'd be fucking great. Whatever. I got a crush on Cassidy. She's adorable. Everybody has a crush on her, and if you don't, something's wrong with you. Anyway, wine time. Yum yum yum. Anyway, so there are moments like that, and I guess the point I was originally trying to make is that the game is kind of political, and it talks about issues of people trying to get into the country, to which I will give them credit when that Mexican couple says, "You're gonna have a hard look. Look, Mexico is not like it's not heaven. It's not the Garden of Eden. It's not rainbows and sunshine. You're gonna have a harder time making your life there than you are here. That's why we're trying to sneak into America." But then you have the Minutemen on the other side, like this father-daughter Minutemen with assault rifles and camo gear and paramilitary stuff. It's sort of implied like they're going to continue, regardless of what you do, this is just going to continue to be a thing that happens. And there's even this giant wall, which, I don't know what the wall situation is like on the border. I haven't gone to Mexico, and I live in San Antonio, so it's like I know, and I talked to one of my friends. I talked to people who are Hispanic. I talked to people who have to deal with the border scenario and family that live across, and they talk about like gang violence and cartels and problems, like prejudice from people, mostly white people, but some Hispanic people too, against illegal immigrants and people trying to get across the country because who God knows what happened to them, and that's why they're trying to leave. And there's a lot of I think the game is wanting to be political, but it knows that it's not like you're going to be able to solve the border crisis. So they just kind of wanted to show, well, here it is. But I do feel like they did it really heavy-handed, and I do feel like there wasn't enough of a lengthy discussion. Now, I do have a point over on my notes about length, and I feel like this game, I want more, and I'll talk about it in a second, but I do feel like there should have been longer conversations with everybody, the good people, the bad people, and the people that you just happen to be associating with at that time. But this game is like trying to make a political statement, but it's showing it in a way that I feel is a little on the nose, a little heavy-handed. Like, well, these illegal immigrants coming over are clearly innocent people, and the Minutemen are clearly people that are just wanting an excuse to shoot down brown people because they feel like their white heritage is being encroached upon. I'm like, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Like, this game doesn't go into the fact that there is a problematic resource drain for illegal immigrants, but it definitely doesn't have a problem talking about the inhuman discrimination against illegal immigrants. So I do feel like it, unfortunately, is a bit leaning in a direction. I'm not going to say it's one-sided. But I will say it does lean in the direction of you're going to want to be on the side of righteousness here, which is Sean and Daniel happen to be Hispanic, and thus you're going to be in the direction of, well, maybe these Hispanics are okay people. And it's like, yes, a lot of them are, but there are also evil, really fucked up drug cartels that are like butchering people and leaving them out in the desert, and they're smuggling drugs into this country, and human trafficking. And I literally just heard a report about sex trafficking actually still being an absurdly high profit yielding industry, and we're talking about illegal sex trafficking. And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, I know that this game may not want to hit on all the issues, but you got to be fair. Like, here's how I would have done the end of the last part of episode 5. This is how I would have done it. We're doing a script doctor. That's right. I'm doing a Jenny Nicholson script doctor. I'm critiquing it. I know this is not the best way to critique something. Here's what should have happened. The fiasco with the Minutemen happened. You get thrown in prison with everybody. And here's what should have happened. The Minutemen should have been like, look, you guys are Americans and you're trying to leave this country. You're traitors to that flag. And then you could have said something like, are you kidding me? Like the founding fathers of that flag were basically criminals. And you're basically trying to, or something like that, right? Like there could have been a dialogue where everybody realizes that history and where we are now is not quite the same. It's not where we want it to be. And everybody should have left that fucking room disillusioned with what they thought they were coming in with. The illegal immigrants, and that's another thing. Like, so Officer Campbell comes in and he's like, hey, you two shut up over here. You have the right to remain silent and you're not cops and you're trying to be. Cut the crap out. If you want my job, you've got to work to earn this badge and you've got to uphold the law and protect the borders and not just shoot random people because you think you're shooting terrorists. You can't do that. And then what he should have done is he should have looked to the illegal immigrants and he should have said in Spanish, i.e. Officer Campbell, by the way, on a side note, is a really noticeable white guy. He should have said in a semi-okay Spanish, he should have been like, hey, just so you know, you're going to be here for a couple more days. We're waiting for the escort bus and your lawyer will come and talk to you if you're claiming political asylum. But you're going to need to talk to us about the marijuana and cocaine that you brought with you and whether or not you're really with a cartel or not. And then both of them could have been like, the Mexican couple could have been like, like, we don't really want to talk about that. And it's like, so to show that like there's a problem in more ways than one with people in this issue. And then he should have been like, hey, Sean, your brother's okay. Let's have a chat. Now, I can't believe that I caught you and you guys were literally right next to the border. And apparently you punched a huge hole in it. But I'm also noticing this thing with the weird explosions. There's no incendiary devices. There's no fire residue. There's no heat signature. It's like you're moving. What are you guys, like Magneto from X-Men? And I don't think that would be like a problematic thing to say if, like, because pop culture is a thing, right? Like the guy could have been like, all right, look, I need to know, like, I don't know exactly what y'all have been going through, but I have all these police reports and I am obligated to arrest you. And Officer Flores will be here soon. But I need to know right now. I want to hear from you what exactly happened, what's going on with you two, and what's up with these weird explosions. And then that would have led to the decision of, do you, A, take a risk buying into the system that may or may not, chew you up and spit you out, even though it is in fact the truth, and you are again trying to achieve justice or run away from injustice? B, you decide, I'm not going to say anything because obviously you're just going to assume this guy's not going to believe you, and that causes different problems for you, but maybe potentially gets you out of it. And then C, you decide to try and lie and bluff your way out of it, even though leading up to that episode, it sort of implied that you're not good. You're not smooth enough to be a natural liar. You're not a natural con artist. So it's sort of like, but you have the option to try. And also, I'll say one thing. And on that note, when you encounter Hank Stamper, you have three options. You can discuss the matter, you can run away, or you can fight. And either way, the same thing happens. Daniel ends up escaping. You end up getting caught by Hank Stamper and, get, handcuffed to his radiator or whatever. And that goes into the next scene. But here's the thing. I noticed something because I thought this was going to be a theme. I thought this was going to be a thing. I thought this was going to be a trick for you as a gamer and to play with the story themes. In episode 1, you can fight, you can run away, or you can discuss things. Okay. In episode 2, you can talk about Daniel's power to your grandparents or use them or not, whatever. In episode 3, Meryl's like, okay, on your knees, and he's got a shotgun, and it's obvious that he's going to blow somebody away. You have the option to go, like, if you took the gun, you can try and shoot him. You can do what he says. I mean, if you didn't take the gun, that's not the point. You have the basic option to either do exactly what he says or discuss the matter. And again, it was also discuss. So I was thinking that's going to come into play again. And then, of course, when you go, hey, Meryl, let's talk. And he's like, oh, yeah, talk about this. Bam. And he gun butts you. And you're like, oh, okay, that's not going to go well. But that also kind of that is going to influence the next decision. But then when you get to like, episode 4, you don't really get a good option to discuss anything with anybody, except for you do get that epic moment where you have to win Daniel back to your side, which of course you do, because otherwise the game can't go in too much of a deviation of a story, or like go in so many different directions that it's completely different parts of the game, because I guess Don't Nod only has so much of a budget. I don't know. You know what I mean? But anyway, then you get 5. I was sitting there thinking there would be a discussion moment. But you don't really get a chance to discuss with the Minutemen, the father-daughter team. I'm just calling them the Minutemen this entire time because that's, to me, what they're supposed to be or what they're trying to be. You don't really get a chance to discuss anything with them, even though the most you can do to influence them is either attack them with Daniel or set them free with Daniel. And then there's the Hispanic couple, which, again, they're super innocent, nice people, and you're obviously supposed to be on their side, so you don't really have anything to discuss with them. What's the point? But I was thinking the Officer Campbell moment would actually give you that one last opportunity to, you can try and fight him and be a douchebag. You can try and run away with Daniel, and then, or you can try and discuss the matter and see what would happen. And discussion hasn't worked out well, but maybe, just maybe, it could work out well with Campbell, and I feel like that could have been a story option. But it's not. Ultimately, you only get two options when you get to the end. Do you surrender, or do you use Daniel's power and fight? Discussion apparently is off the table. Even though we use phrases like the pen is mightier than the sword. There's no such thing as bad press, apparently. And I guarantee you, I'm thinking back to like that, does anybody remember Elian Gonzalez, where they showed the photo, like as a kid, he needed to go back to his country because he's an illegal immigrant, despite what he went through, what his parents went through. But then there's that fucking beautifully snapped photo of like that special forces guy, the SWAT team guy, who's just like, and he's like, he's like barreling into through the door, and then the lady with Elian is there, and they're just like freaked out, like, what are we doing? It's like that right there sent a really bad picture to, and it's funny because I think that's arguably a precursor to what inspired games like this in a way. But it's so to speak, like there is such a thing as this raw brute force that maybe needs to be kept in check because it's not right at the end of the day, even though it's legal. How come we can't explore those themes? In this game, you don't get the opportunity. Also, I think as Sean, you're almost 18. If you're not 18, you're 17, close to 18. Daniel turns 10 at some point in the game. I guess what I'm trying to say is I do feel like this game was dabbling with political discussions, but it didn't really go into a political discussion, and it just took one side, which is generally in the favor of, a little more liberal than conservative. But I also have to stop and say that I do think that the people making this game, they're all like French Canadian. So my question to them is, what do they really freaking know about what's going on over here in America on the southern border outside of just news stories? And I am curious. I'm not saying this to attack. I'm actually asking a question. Exactly what kind of research did all of the French Canadian people at Don't Nod do to research the border problems and actually talk about like racism in America and immigration and how people who don't want immigrants to come in are told, you are an immigrant to this country. There's only one group of people who aren't immigrants in America, Native Americans. And there's not very many of them left because let's say I think the statistic was 95% of them in the North, Central, and South American continent were wiped out because of politics, combat, warfare, and disease, which is really unfair. So they don't really even deal with that very well. That's the one thing. I think this game realizes that it dealt with themes that were probably bigger and more societally relevant than the artistic movements that we go through, like in 1. But that's also why I don't like 2 as much. And I like 1 because 1 is more self-contained. 2 is like, I don't think you want to try and make a statement, but you're making a statement. Sorry. Don't say you're not making a statement because ultimately you are. Unpopular opinion. I know that like The Daily Show with Jon Stewart back in the day was awesome, and I watched him a lot, and I agreed with a lot of what he said sometimes. But there were times where he would show up and say, oh, we're just clowns. We're just comedians. You can't take us seriously. And it's like, except for the fact that there were several segments, interviews, and things in your show that were meant to be at best satirical, but at worst actual commentary, and you were being political, trying to get people to, you were trying to influence and get people to do certain things based off of your way. You were social commenters. You can't hide behind I'm just a clown because I'm making a joke, when you're actually trying to get people to go and act and do a certain thing or vote a certain way or spend their money a certain way. In this game, it's kind of like the same thing. I'm sitting there thinking like, you guys are not maybe wanting to be political, but you're being political. Just own up to it. It's fine. It's heavy-handed enough as it is. Anyway. All right. Well, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to talk about because this video is starting to run on a bit, and I don't want to just make terrible points. I mentioned that I do think there's a lot of missed opportunities and things that weren't followed through upon. I do think that they were conflicted from the start as to exactly what to say with the game, but they did do a very visceral job of exploring themes of loss, anger, frustration, survival, and ultimately what's keeping these two together at the end of the day is family. It's a theme of family. They're a wolf pack, right? They're a wolf pack. There's nothing wrong with that. And I do think it's a little heavy-handed, like, oh, a bunch of Mexican wolves, but it's fine. It's fine. Again, I do think there was a cultural divide between the people who made this game and whom they were trying to tell the story about. But it is what it is. It's out. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to talk about. There's all kinds of weird little things I can mention. A lot of good things, like at the end of episode 2, when the grandparents who you were starting to have like some friction with ultimately go like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. We didn't want to push you away. We wanted you to stay here. We loved you." And the kids are like, "I know, we love you too, Grandma." Like the moment where Claire starts crying and she's like trying to help you actively survive and get out of here. And then you all you realize it's a situation where they all feel bad and they realize that, oh crap, we all have to split now. And you two are on the lam still. And there's like, it's just emotional. And then Daniel and Sean are just like, we're going to miss you, Grandpa. We're going to miss you, Grandma. Because clearly Grandma had issues that influenced where they're at as a family. Because they had an issue with their daughter, Karen. Karen married Esteban. And then they had 2 kids. But then she went, I can't be a mother. I'm miserable. This is not working. And then Esteban was like, okay, well, then you go live your life and I'll take care of the kids. And it's like, wow, what a cool guy. But she obviously had issues. And Mom had an issue. Grandmom had an issue. The whole point is there's family reconciliation and there's just emotional moments in there that I do. Like the end of episode 2 makes me tear up. It does. It makes me tear up. And then you throw Chris on top of it. It's like, do you form a good relationship with Chris? Or does he get hit by a cop car and you're like, oh, dear God, what am I doing? Or does Daniel use his power to save him? Which, okay, things are fine then, I guess. I will mention, I didn't say anything about the Adventures of Captain Spirit, the prequel to Life is Strange 2 that was sort of like a teaser. You play as Chris, their Claire and Steven's neighbor and their son. You play as their son, and he's like Daniel's age, like he's 9 or 10. And Mom is dead, gone, and Dad is obviously depressed and angry and turning into an alcoholic, and he's starting to become abusive. And it's implied that Chris is starting to deal with that. And anyway, some of the things you do in that game will carry over into 2, and it will say like, oh, the Captain Spirit episode is successfully loaded. Which I do like that. I find that fascinating. And it's weird because I always forget that I have Captain Spirit, and whenever I do my marathon, what I'll probably do a marathon at some point in the near future where I do Before the Storm, Life is Strange 1, Captain Spirit, Life is Strange 2, and then just evaluate life after that. I'll evaluate life after that. Speaking of evaluating life, here's some wine. Yay! Anyway. But anyway, I don't want to keep rambling. I've talked about a lot of different things. I guess I'm not going to offer like a grading system. Like, would I give this game an A, B, C, or D? Would I give it a 4 out of 5, a 5 out of 5, or 1 out of 5? I kind of feel like grading is it kind of removes everything that you said up to that point. So I'm not going to grade anything. I'm just going to say my concluding points here. Life is Strange 1, I love for both like story, theme, and personal reasons. It was inspiring to me. Like Before the Storm, in addition to that, was also great. Life is Strange 2, I think that it's a game that I don't mind going back and playing. And if you're not sure if you like the first one, then I would say play Life is Strange 2. You might like that better because it's a bit more grounded and deals with more contemporary themes, like political philosophy themes. But ultimately, I like 1. I'm not as much of a fan with 2, but I will admit I was invested in making sure that Sean and Daniel had a good resolution no matter what was going to happen. But that does, like I was there from the beginning of 2. I got to 1 and Before the Storm after they were finished, and they were basically all one package. So those are totally 2 different game release experiences. I do think it's fun. The anticipation was worth it. I do like the fact that there are multiple endings because then it really does give you an incentive of, do I do A or B? Well, it's more than that. And there should be because there's a lot going on here. I will say for 2, I would have liked to have been given more time with some of these people, some of these characters. I'm hoping that Don't Nod next time gets a bigger budget to tell more stories with some of these characters and lets you fulfill, some of the people that in Max's journal and even in Chloe's journal, you get a lot of detail about what they're thinking and feeling and how they interpret things. Sean is typical teenage boy who's not even a writer or a poet like his mom. He doesn't write a whole lot. He writes very little, but he mostly doodles. So it does kind of pay homage to the artistic struggle. But for him, I don't feel like Sean is going to be a world class artist. Maybe maybe like a low key artist like on DeviantArt. Whereas I feel like Max was destined to be a photographer because that's what she really wanted to do. Whereas Sean is not certain about anything, so he kind of can be molded depending on how you play the story. Anyway, so I would recommend two, but I would recommend one still more so, just because I feel like that's again a more well thought out game. Whereas two, there's things that feel they were left out, maybe for budgetary reasons, or they just weren't sure about. One last note to bring up here, and I said I would get to it. So in two, there was a question from the moment two started. Is there going to be an homage to Max and Chloe? Is there going to be a reference to Life is Strange 1? Well, when you start the game, it does ask you, did you play Life is Strange 1? Yes or no. And then it says, did you choose to sacrifice Arcadia Bay? Yes or no. And near the end of 1, I want to say the end of the second act. Just anyway, the point is near the end of the first episode, you do drive by Arcadia Bay. Sean has an emotional moment where he lets out all this crap that happens to Brody, and depending on whether you save the town or save Chloe, you get to see the town active and blinking and thriving at night, or you get to see a town that's wiped off and there's no lights. You don't even see the lighthouse on the cliffside overlooking the bay, which I find interesting. And then you're thinking like, well, are they going to really pay homage to Max and Chloe? It's not really their story. Although I will say in episode 5, they did give you something interesting. The one person that survives no matter what direction you go in, David Madsen, Chloe's stepfather. He turns out has been living in the community of Away. And apparently he's a lot more chill, like he's wearing shorts instead of tucked in jeans. He has a ponytail, he's growing his beard out. He's got a Hawaiian shirt, he's got a ballin' ass Hawaiian shirt. Good job, David Madsen. I approve. I'll be the first in line to sign to shake your hand. Yeah, joke aside. But then when you talk to him, depending on which choice you took, it's like if you saved Chloe, you're talking to David Madsen, he tries to give you some advice, and then Chloe calls him on the phone, and if you saved Arcadia Bay, Joyce calls him on the phone. Apparently they're divorced. And if you save Chloe, Joyce is dead along with everybody else or whatever. Although, here's the thing. And now, in the first, again, not to bring up the first game, but I do think it's relevant here. In the first game, it's implied, do you save one person or do you save everybody else? That's the basic moral foundation that they're offering you with that decision. If you play Life is Strange 2 and you get to the end and you talk to David, regardless of which direction you picked, there are consequences to that. If you saved Chloe, Joyce dies along with a lot of other people. However, you find out that David gets out okay. And then you even find a letter written by Victoria Chase, of all people, who was like, hey, Mr. Madsen, thanks for... I want to say she says something like, I can't believe that Mark Jefferson had me in his basement, but thank you for saving us. And, I hope you're doing okay. And it's like, Victoria's almost treating her like Victoria is treating her like a stepdad in a way, or like an uncle or something. And then, which is funny because Victoria Chase was sort of pitted as Max's rival. She was stuck up. She was a little bitchy, but definitely was like, vain, wore really high-end fashion, and was really like, oh no, I'm going to be the best photographer ever. I'm going to get in the galleries. And Max is like, calm the fuck down. So it's interesting that she gets away, which also makes you question, well, exactly how many other people got away if you chose the option to sacrifice this entire town. Well, we know Max and Chloe survives. David apparently survives. Victoria Chase also survives. But maybe everybody else is dead? But who knows? But then I will say I do think things like that do change the formula when you're gauging if you're including Life is Strange 2 into that moral decision of do I save the town or do I save Chloe? Now you have a totally different... the tables have turned just a little bit. Now if you choose to save the town... and Joyce calls him instead, and he's like, hey, Joyce, how you doing? And it's obvious that he still has feelings for Joyce, even though they're divorced. But Chloe's dead. And then he even makes a note that, yeah, after her husband and her daughter died, she just wasn't the same, and we had to go our separate ways. Whatever. But then you have like other things. Like Joyce is okay. It's implied that the rest of the town is okay. But you have a photo, instead of a letter from Victoria Chase, you have a photo of Nathan Prescott, the disgruntled, affluent kid who shot Chloe. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Gin time. That's how you do it. Feel that burn. Here's the thing. He mentions Nathan Prescott. Like, yeah, Chloe was killed by this psychotic rich kid at her school, and I was able to catch him. But here's the thing. He didn't say anything about Mark Jefferson. So that implied, which means either Mark Jefferson did get caught, and they just didn't want to say anything about him, like he deserves to be forgotten, or what if Mark Jefferson got away scot-free? What if Nathan Prescott was like, the only villain but also the victim here, and nothing happens to Mark Jefferson, and Mark Jefferson escapes to continue abducting, like brutalizing, photographing, and then murdering young women? That's a horrifying thought. That's like, well, we stopped the Third Reich, but Adolf Hitler escaped, and God knows what he's doing. It's like, whoa, the game changes now. The question of what are the consequences to my actions change now if you incorporate two, and I find that I love it. I love it because it makes the whole conversation completely different. It's not, do you sacrifice all of the people to save your soulmate, or do you sacrifice your soulmate to save everyone else? Well, in this case, there's sort of a dark resolution either way. If you save Chloe, a lot of people die. Not everybody, but a lot of people die. If you save Arcadia Bay, Chloe dies. Some bad guys get caught. But what about the real monster? Game doesn't say anything about him. He might still be going on doing things and people are none the wiser. There's no justice for Rachel Amber. There's no justice for Chloe in that case. Except, yeah, Nathan Prescott, but his family has a lot of money, and unless they had direct evidence to throw Jefferson under the bus, which the game doesn't address that, it could be anything. The sky's the limit. It's ambiguous. It's vague. It makes you go, well, if this which I love this. I love this because it's an existential experience. It's almost like a mimetic thing where it's an evolving idea. If you now go back and play Life is Strange 1 and you get to that pivotal decision, you then have to ask your question, am I okay with saving Chloe and at least Victoria Chase? And technically David Madsen? But everybody else is dead as shit, including Warren, your potential boy lover, or young man, your young debonair. Or what if you make the heroic decision to sacrifice your soulmate, in your maturing moment, and you save the entire town, but Nathan Prescott gets accused of murder, and nothing happens to Mark Jefferson? Uh-oh. What exactly impact did you have then? You stopped the Third Reich, but you didn't get Adolf Hitler, and he's just going to keep on going and being Hitler. Now, I know that that's a stupid, extreme joke scenario, but that's the point I'm trying to make, is that even Life is Strange 1 gave you the understanding of there are consequences to your actions, and you're not sure exactly what's going to happen. But then you get to 2, which technically does continue from that indirectly. It's not a direct sequel because the game's not about Max and Chloe. It's about these 2 other kids a few years after the fact, and you do get to see a photo of Max and Chloe, a little bit older, out in the desert. There's like a selfie of them, taking a photo together. It can be construed as friendly or lovingly. And I find it peculiar because Max is wearing this black t-shirt with a moon on it. And Chloe is, I think, wearing like purple, but she has like green hair, which shows that they've changed a little bit, but not too much. But they become interesting people. Also, you can even, I just realized this part, again, maybe I'm just theorizing, I'm just pulling this out of my butt, but there was a part near the end of episode 4 where Max looked up into the sky and was like, hey, Chloe, there's 2 moons in the sky. There's 2 moons here at night. What's going on? And then one of the moons disappears. And I think that that's even hearkening back to that. You could say like, well, Chloe is the moon that disappeared because she's ephemeral, and Max is the person who's documenting it, and she's wearing the moon that you do get left with. Now, I'm just pulling this out of my butt, and that's just a fun little fan thing that I'm throwing out, right? Now, I love the fact that I can do this and other people can do this when you just compare all of these games in a row. Is Rachel Amber the this force in nature? Did she cause the storm, or is it just incidental? If you sacrifice Chloe, what happens then? If you sacrifice Arcadia Bay, what happens then? Who are these two? Who exactly? And what I find even funny is that David takes the phone call with Chloe or Joyce, and you are literally an outsider looking in through like a cracked window, and you get to hear his side of the conversation, and the rest of it you're kind of filling in based off of what you know from the first game. And it's sort of like the game designer's going, look, we're going to give you this. We're going to give you this little morsel because we know if we don't give this to you, you're going to like gnaw our fingers apart. Instead, here's a little morsel of what could have happened. And, you know, technically it could be this or it could be that. And I love it. It's great. You can philosophize all you want in the first game. What happens in game 2? Well, they go on and live happily ever after, but there's a lot of dead people. Or, well, his stepdaughter's dead and he's regretful, and but Mark Jefferson, the monster, is still out and about, but everybody else is okay. So it's interesting. There's how do you weigh this? It's crazy to weigh this. It goes back to the whole what I said earlier. If you're put in a really poor, morally problematic situation, it's not fair to go, oh, you did the wrong thing or you did the right thing, when it's not really clear. It's argumentative at that point. Now, I know I don't want people watching this video doing terrible things and saying, oh, it's argumentative. That's not my point. I'm just saying that it's fun from an analytical standpoint. But if you're ever caught in a moral conundrum, just do what you think is the right thing to do and stand by it. That's all you can do. Anyway. And maybe that's what Sean and Daniel did. Sean was like, I got to do the right thing. I don't know what it is. Do we stand and fight the justice system even though we're probably going to lose? Do we try to escape even though that's going to make us look worse? Do I foster my younger brother's powers? Or do I tell him you got to use it well and you can't use it all the time and you got to rely on your own abilities and be fair? I don't know. It's difficult. Anyway. So I went off on another, oh God, probably like a 20-minute tangent about that stuff. I think I'm just going to go ahead and stop here and say everything. I said a lot. This is the kind of stuff I've been thinking and mulling over for a long time, ever since these episodes have been releasing with 2 and going and replaying 1, like just got like over a year ago. And I have a great time talking about this. So this is a video game series that I'm really looking forward to. So I will now turn the tables to you. What did you feel about Life is Strange 1 and the prequel games? Or prequel game. What did you feel about Life is Strange 2? Do you agree that it's maybe a little too political? Do you agree that it's just political enough? Or do you disagree that it's maybe just, no, it's perfectly political, it's fine? Do you like the relationship between Sean and Daniel? How did you foster it? What are your thoughts and your feelings about these games? Because I can continue talking and ranting, but it's more fun to know that I'm saying things and that you guys are, able to do something with that. And I'd like to know, how did you feel? What inspired you or motivated you about Life is Strange 1 and 2? Or what maybe made you depressed or angry or frustrated about 1 and 2? And did you, was there a call to arms in your life somehow? Are you somebody that's like, yeah, there's a lot of people trying to get into this country that are not being taken care of? Or are you somebody that's like, no, there's an issue, I don't know, it's whatever. If you have something to say, please be mature and say whatever it is that you want to say in the comments. Please like and subscribe. I don't have anything for you to donate because I'm not a hack looking for money here. I just want to post these things and have you guys hear them, and hopefully people get something out of them. But I just want to say lastly, the first Life is Strange was amazing to me personally. I didn't get the same from Life is Strange 2. Maybe that was just because it was a bit too real, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad game or even a good game. It just means that's how I perceived it. So if there's anything you want to say, make it in the comment section. Thank you so much for listening to this video and watching it. If you're still watching it and listening to it, I know I went on way longer than I did last time. Sometimes I just have a lot to say and think out loud, or maybe I'm trying to be a balancing act and saying, well, there's this info and then there's this info. So anyway, it is what it is. I'll try to be more concise with future topics. That's all I have to say for the moment. So otherwise, I salute all of you that are having to go through injustice and that are having issues right now. And I hope that everything will work out better for you. And ultimately, things will work out better in the long run. No matter whether we like them or not, things will always work out in the end. So I hope you enjoyed this Life is Strange discussion. Play the games if you haven't yet. If you have played them, what was your experience with it? That's what I'd like to know. Otherwise, I think I'm going to go ahead and sign off. And I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about next time. Probably won't go on as long, but I appreciate any attention that anybody out there has given me. So thank you so much. And, 2020 is about to start pretty soon. So have a good year and reflect on what you've been through. And at the end of the day, we'll all pull through and be cool people. Just like Sean and Daniel, if you pick the right ending. Peace out.